seleccionar español o inglés.
This
según
meeting
el
is
idioma de
being
preferencia.
recorded.
Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and let's see. Aaron, do you want to talk about the mechanics of a quick review of the mechanics of Zoom, please?
Yes, ma'am. So for all our panelists, sorry, real quick. The rest of our, there we go. Yeah, so thank you. So for all our panelists here, in order to connect to the audio, you have two different options. Either to use your device audio, or you can call and use a cell phone, but it would be in the bottom left-hand corner to join audio. Next slide, please. Once audio is connected, please mute. As you can already tell, we have some background noise. So it is imperative that everyone is muted until it's your turn to speak. To unmute yourself, you would just press the same button. Next slide, please. For our committee, please keep your camera on for the duration of the meeting. I know there is one member that is driving, or one or two members that are driving right now. It is okay not to have your video while you're driving. Please be safe. But for everyone else that is stationary, please have your video on. For the public, your video will be off, or your camera will be off during this. For our panelists and the attendees, to raise your hand, you'll hit, you'll go to the participants button, and there will be a raise hand button that'll come up. So please raise the hand feature if you want to speak. For the panelists, the team will call on the committee members individually. Please remain muted until called upon. For the public, you can raise your hand only during public comment, which will be towards the end of this meeting. Next slide, please. During the meeting, if you have any questions or technical difficulties, you can email myself directly at azavala@cityofpetaluma.org. For any Spanish inquiries, you can email martin@mrtranslations.org, or in this particular case, because Mariana is helping us today, be mariana@mrtranslations.org. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you. All right, so let's keep it here for a second. I want to set the stage for what we're going to do tonight. So first of all, we've got to do a little bit more business. We've got to do a quorum. We got to do a roll call for a quorum. Then we're going to go essentially ratify the minutes. And then we're going to jump into this topic of community engagement. And you all did such great work last time, and then sending in your notes on your definition of success and 3 innovative ideas. And I'll talk to you about the data sort. And we're actually going to walk out of here this evening with anywhere between 1 and 3 recommendations that we coalesce around to give to the council in the area of community engagement. And then I want to make sure that we leave 45 minutes for public comment. And we'll talk about that as well, because there's a lot swirling around which we're going to talk about. But before we get there, if we might have a roll call so that we can see if we have a quorum, please.
Thank you, Tracy. So I'm going to call each committee member by name. My apologies if I mispronounce your name. So to start, Joel Brunner McKean.
Present.
Angeles Cruz. And Angeles Cruz. Okay. Liz Chacon. Liz Chacon. Okay. Anne-Marie Daniels. Anne-Marie Daniels.
Present.
Thank you. Claudia de la Peña.
Present.
Thank you. Ramona Faith.
Present.
Thank you. Rabbi Ted Feldman.
Present.
Thank you. Anthony Franklin.
Present.
Thank you. Johanna Garcia.
Present.
Thank you. Zaira Garcia.
Present.
Thank you. Heynan Hunaidi. Heynan, I see that you're on, so I'm going to mark you as present. Eric Leland.
Present.
Thank you. Sonia Lowry.
Present.
Thank you. Sadie Martinez. Sadie Martinez. Okay. Julia Main.
Hi, I'm present. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Miller.
Present.
Thank you. Joanna Pon.
Present.
Thank you. Stefan Perez. Stefan Perez. Okay. Kenyatta Reynolds.
Present.
Thank you. Fabian Romeo Macias.
Present.
Thank you. Faith Ross.
Present.
Thank you. Mark Scott.
Present.
Thank you. Joe Sturdivant. Joe Sturdivant. Okay. Risa Tinsley Green. Thank you, Risa. Pedro Toledo. Pedro Toledo. Okay. Catherine Wells.
Present.
Thank you. Aaron Wilkins.
Present.
Thank you. And Lou Zwire.
Present.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Hanan Hunidi. I am present, but I am out of town and I will be joining off video.
Thank you. And at this point, is there anyone else that I missed that came in late? Okay. Tracy, at this point, we do have a quorum. We have 22 members present.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. It's a lot of work, a lot of energy swirling around this and to do this work. So thank you. So let's now get the last piece of business out of the way, which is ratification of last month's minutes. So I'll give you a few more minutes, say 3, because I think they were sent out, for you to scan through them again. And then we will ask for a motion for them to be approved at a second, and then we will vote. That's enough. I think you guys they were sent out. You all read quickly. Are there any corrections or questions? I can't see from the city. If someone can watch their hands for me and just call on people, that'd be great. But are there no corrections at this point?
Tracy, there are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we can deem them approved. I don't think we have to take a vote. Correct, Eric?
That's correct, Tracy.
Okay, perfect. So we will deem them approved. Thank you. All right, let's go to the slide with the AHCAC guiding principles, please. Where we are. She knew. All right, everybody take a breath. Here we go. We're going to jump in here. Man, so as you all are aware, because for those of you who haven't sent emails directly to me, they've been forwarded, and texts and whatnot. So we're adults. I'm not going to go over all the guiding principles again in detail. You all know what they are. And you also know by now, this is our third meeting, that I am very direct. All of this energy around the committee, we need to figure out a way to put it in the committee so that today we can walk out of here with our first set of recommendations, or one or two or three, for the council, because that's what this is about. It is about helping Petaluma become a better city, a more inclusive city, a more diverse city, a more accepting city of differences, and embracing really of those differences, celebrating those differences. So what I want to talk about, I think, but I think we have to err, without, we're not naming people, we're not pointing fingers, we're going to have civil discourse. We're going to take about, let's say, 20 minutes to do this so we can then jump into the work and still leave time for public comment. How are people, well, we've got some interference there. How are people feeling about, the energy that's churning around even outside of these meetings? I'm just opening it up. The city, you guys can see the hands. I can't, so please help me here. And I want you to know that this is a safe space. So if anybody in any way interrupts anyone, if anyone, you can disagree. There's nothing wrong with that, but be respectful. Otherwise, I'm going to stop the conversation, at least for that person. So let's talk about the energy that's going around outside of the committee. How are people feeling about that?
So Tracy, we do have Eric Leland with his hand up.
Hi, Eric.
Hi. Thanks, Tracy, for sort of bringing us here. I guess I can speak from my perspective how I feel about it. I guess I have a few thoughts to share.
Sure.
In my understanding of the AHCAC, we have a serious mandate to advise City Council, on how to improve race relations in Petaluma.
Mm-hmm.
And so, given what I've read from specifically Stefan Perez's social media posts, I guess I'm disappointed in that behavior. It's entirely inappropriate, in my opinion, for anyone to amplify racist and violent rhetoric. I mean, anyone. It's even worse when a public official does this. And in my opinion, it's downright appalling when a member of our committee does it as well. So those are my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be really interested to hear what other people think.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for being candid. And I want to be, how do I say this? I would love for us to be able to have a conversation like we were at a barbecue, right? And everybody had an adult beverage or sparkling water in their hand. But we do have to maintain people's privacy. So if we can, in this case, not use names, we all know who, we can say the person. It's just we don't want to, we just want to have a conversation about the substance of it. And I hear you. I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Trace. And I'm sorry to
That's okay.
interrupt. I think the issue is I'm mentioning Stefan Perez's name because the issue swirling around, in my opinion, is social media posts from this member. Mm-hmm. And so I understand what you're saying, but they're intrinsically linked. Like this, mm-hmm. This is what this issue is. Mm-hmm. So that's my perspective on it, but I just wanted to provide a little bit of pushback on that.
No, that's fair. And I don't have a hard pushback on you. I really don't. Because duh, we all know what we're talking about at this point, right? That's at least one of the issues. I've also heard, in addition to that, okay, but we need to get to work, right? And so how do we do that? So I think your point's fair. Who else has their hand up? Thank you, Eric.
Rabbi Ted Feldman.
Hello, Rabbi.
Actually, it's just a comment. When we have discussions, can we have a full screen of everybody?
Sure.
So we can be talking to each other. This is very detracting from a discussion when I can only see a few people and all that. Thank you.
Go ahead. Did you have any other comments?
No, not for now. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Kenyatta was the next one with her hand raised, but she just put it down. Kenyatta, do you still have something?
I was just gonna make the same request.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
The next person we have with their hand raised is Anne Marie Daniels.
Hi, Anne Marie.
Anne Marie, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi. No, we can't really hear you. We're having a hard time hearing you. And I think Sadie Martinez is here. I think I see her.
Yes, Sadie and Pedro just joined.
Okay.
Welcome.
So Anne Marie, are we able to, want to try it again? No. Okay. Maybe we can. No, we.
Can you hear me now?
Little bit better. No, we can't, and we want to hear you. So let us come back to you, Aaron. Please don't let me forget. Maybe you can get into a better cell area. It's tricky, I know. Others?
We have Joanna Pond.
Hi, Joanna.
Hi, Tracy. I think, this committee is, we're supposed to be addressing safety, community relations, and policing. And so to have a member of the committee that many of us have written in and expressed our concerns about that don't make us feel safe, I think and I feel, this is just how I feel like we are giving him the benefit of the doubt. We are making excuses for his hate speech. There were racist memes on that page, anti-Semitic, things that would make me feel unsafe with this person. And then to see what I felt like was the city come around this person and protect that. And not only that, but then allow them to voice, I don't even know, to continue with our process. And it felt like possibly interrupt the process because it seems like he is not of the same mind as we are. I mean, and we've seen the protests at St. Vincent, how that was handled with the counter protesters, how they're allowed to interrupt our First Amendment rights of peaceful protests. We saw the issues at Leghorn Park. I had my own issue last week concerning lack of regard for my children when they were injured. And so we keep seeing this pattern of the city allowing these behaviors to happen and what I feel like is a lack of accountability. So that's my piece.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm not commenting, right? I want to hear what you all have to say, and then I have something to say. But I want all of you to go first. So go ahead.
The next hand we have raised is Ramona Faith.
Hi, Ramona.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to share from my perspective, I found all the emails and stuff very disruptive. I would hope that issues that need to be addressed can be and should be addressed in this group. I think that, someone made a comment about an individual trying to disrupt the work that we're doing. We're spending time right now, he's disrupting the work that we're trying to do, as far as I'm concerned, because we're talking about it rather than getting back to the business of what we're here to do. So I just found it very, I found it disruptive, and I found it, it just pulled a focus in a different direction. So I'm here to work with all of you in this committee to try to come up with some strategies to bring forward to the city council. And I don't think anybody is going to disrupt the work that we're going to do, because we as a group won't allow it. So I just encourage us to keep moving forward, one foot in front of the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramona.
Thank you. Tracy, I want to make a quick statement to the public. We do have Q&A open, but we'll only be addressing technical questions that you might have with the Zoom at this point. Thank you. The next person we have is Claudia de la Pena.
Hello, Claudia.
Hi, Tracy. Good evening, everyone. I agree with both what Joanna and Ramona said. I found all of what went on last week to be disruptive, and but I also think that we need to take these type of matters seriously. When people say, "I don't feel safe with having to serve on a committee with this person," or "I don't feel safe because this person has done blah, blah, blah through social media," we need to hear that. And so, me personally, I was a bit disappointed with the response that we got last week from both you and the city. Nothing personal, but I was disappointed with the response. So I agree with Ramona. We're here to do a job, and we're all here to work together. And I'd like to see us go and accomplish the goals that we've set for ourselves. I would encourage the city next time, if such a committee is formed ever again, that they do a better job of vetting, so that you know who's who and what's what. I'm all for having honest conversations. I'm all for celebrating each other's differences. But we all need to feel like we're safe, and that and that the city has, that they've got our back when it comes to something like this. And that's not really how I felt last week reading some of the responses. So I agree. Let's move forward from here. The individual who all of this has to do with seems to not be here this evening. I don't know if that's because the individual has decided not to become part of the group again. But I just think moving forward, let's make sure that we all feel safe in this space, so that we can move forward productively and get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Don't mute yourself yet, because you said you were disappointed in the response. What would you have liked to have seen as the response? And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it would be helpful.
You know what? I really can't give you anything really specific right now. It just felt as if though the individual was being protected more so than the committee, and more so than some of the people that spoke out and said, "I am fearful. I am afraid. I've told you before, I'm afraid of this person because of this person's past." And so the responses that I saw, including the letter that was signed by Mayor Barrett, Councilmember Keeley, and Fisher, that letter didn't strike me as a letter that really acknowledged the fear that people said that they were feeling.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate the explanation. All right. Do we have, are there others, Aaron?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
The next speaker we have is Zaira.
Hi, Zaira.
Hey, Tracy and everyone. So I'm kind of piggybacking what Claudia de la Pena said, acknowledgement. I think we don't always want to have these conversations. It's not always happening on the ad hoc committee. The reality is that these kinds of conversations, these kinds of behaviors, the dismissiveness of safety is specifically for QT BIPOC folks in our community. It's ongoing offline. So that's what I'm here to do, and what I think most of us would hope are here to do. But my faith in that has really shrunk. I don't have faith in our city. I don't have faith in this committee. I don't have faith that you can protect us. I don't have faith that you can acknowledge when we say we don't feel safe. And again, it's all about lived experiences, because what's going on offline in our community on a daily, it's happening. And I think what I would have liked to have seen is our city council actually stand up to white supremacy or any of its forms. And the fact that they couldn't do that, but yet they can applaud all the other good work, because climate change is easy. Proclamations for Pride is easy. That stuff is easy. But when we talk about race, when we talk about white supremacy, when we talk about dismantling systemic racism, that's the hard stuff that nobody wants to really have do the work. So that's all my piece that I have to say, and appreciate having this time to say so.
Thank you, Zaira.
Next speaker we have is Sonia.
Hi,
Thank
Sonia.
you so much. Hi there, everybody. I just wanted to share that I believe the reason why we have this committee reflects a lot of what the other speakers have shared earlier. The whole purpose for us coming together to stand, as co-conspirators, to be anti-racist. And I believe that, as the first African American superintendent in Petaluma, I am experiencing a lot outside of this committee, and white fragility gets really wielded as, weaponized hurt feelings. And there's always what I'm seeing, not across the country, not in other places. I'm specifically referencing Petaluma. And what I'm seeing is people of color, being told to wait. People of color being told this isn't the moment. People of color, being told, well, that's not really what it is it? Like, that's not really racist per se. And so, in other words, a white person becoming offended at the suggestion that something is racist often shifts the focus to the white person's feelings or experience at the expense of the persons of color experience or even their life, which is why we are having this committee. And what we should all be aware of is that it's not up to anyone to tell a person of color what they do or don't experience. When you deny someone's experiences, you're telling them that their reality doesn't exist, and that what they perceive as racism or microaggression or white supremacist act is something else. Of course, it may be difficult for someone to recognize when they are denying someone's reality. That's why we have allies in the first place, right? That's why we're supposed to do our own work and read in the first place. And so I think that we have to continue to go back to our why for this committee. I will tell you that, what I've experienced in the last few months is ugly. It's ugly. And if we're really going to be about the work, let's just be about the work and not talk about the work. That I came to join this committee to really be about the work.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Let's try to go back to Anne Marie Daniels if she still has a comment. Anne Marie.
Can you hear me guys now?
Yeah, look much better.
Okay, great. I just got home.
Okay.
But I've been listening to you all comment. And I agree with most of what's happened here. And my biggest thing that I've taken away from this is I don't know that it's possible for us to create a safe space in the way that we're thinking of. especially because I know that from our city's response, a lot of this is referencing like things like the Brown Act and just legislation that can't be changed within the powers of this committee. There was a large push, having been part of the community listening sessions earlier, not earlier, this last year, more than a year ago. We had the first webinars about police brutality within Petaluma. And so there was a large push for us to get this work done, get this committee formed, because we wanted to do it yesterday. And the vetting process, I think, is where it was flawed here. And this is also why we talk about like social media checks for police, because I think in that response, one thing is like, we can't carry out discourse within social media. And I agree that, like, based on the Brown Act, we don't really want that communication happening outside of the committee here. We want everything here to be legal and within the realm of the law. But social media is real. It's a form of communication in our culture. I mean, the insurrection on January 6th was organized on Facebook. So I feel like that can't be ignored. The other thing about creating a safe space is that we're in the public eye. And I think that pretty much all of the public, like city, county, meetings that I've been a part of in the last year, sometimes there's just aggression from public comment or aggression from, different organizations. And we're held by the Brown Act, and we can't, pull someone off of a call, First Amendment rights and things like that. So I get it. It's just like, I am realizing that when we say safe space, it has to be a different expectation for a city sanctioned like committee the way that we are, which is disappointing, because we can't change that. The other thing that I want to just say quickly is I will celebrate every difference except for the difference of supporting white supremacy or implicitly, being biased against white supremacy. I see a lot of heads nodding there, and I want to be careful of when we say celebrating differences, because none of us, think that police don't matter or think that white people don't matter. There is a systemic difference in equality in our country and in just the way that humanity has built upon itself. So I will not celebrate the difference between me and white supremacists. I will not.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Thank you. And it should not be celebrated. So others.
And lastly, we have Eric Leland.
Hey, Eric.
Hi. I'm resonating on a lot of this. On a few points in particular, we are constrained by process. We're in the public eye. We have because we're in the public eye, our credibility has been hit, by this behavior. I mean, and this is something that I think we should take seriously. I would recommend that we as a committee make a short resolution on this point. We can do that. We can make a short statement, our beliefs and what we're doing as a committee. I wrote something up. It's pretty short, and I was going to read it if that's okay.
Please, go ahead.
Resolution. We, the AHCAC Advisory Committee on Race Relations, hereby affirm the extraordinary importance of the work this committee does to improve race relations locally. We further affirm that members of the AHCAC should uphold high standards of behavior that builds and preserves public trust in the work of the committee. We therefore condemn amplifying and glorifying violence, misogyny, and racism through social media communications or any other means. Thus, we resolve to censor AHCAC member Stefan Perez for public communications damaging to the work and credibility of this committee.
Is there more?
That's it.
Okay.
And so I was suggesting that we could agree to such a resolution, since we're in the public eye, to establish our credibility as a committee again.
So thank you for that. Hold on to that. Eric, there you are. Okay. And I have to ask this because I know the Brown Act, but not as well as this gentleman. So can we bring that before the AHCAC to pass a resolution if they want by vote?
We can, but I don't think we have adequate agenda notice of doing that tonight. If the committee wants to, I think the best thing to do if the committee wants to take that action would be to put it on the next agenda and have it be part of the agenda materials. I also,
is it something that could go under new business?
well, see, the purpose of the Brown Act is really the fundamental purpose, like we discussed early when we just started meeting, is to give the public notice of what of its business is going to be conducted so they can attend, take part, and comment and decide, their participation. And so the problem is we haven't really given notice other than to people who are watching right now. And we'd want to, and I see Peggy wants to add a comment, and we'd need to have an action appropriately ready for that with that notice, just like we do with all the other city bodies.
Eric, can we at least have the ad hoc weigh in whether to add it to can they?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Just like the
Okay.
council can, like during council comment when they talk about future agenda items.
That would be an action I think that the ad hoc might want to take tonight.
So let me make sure I'm understanding, Eric and Peggy. So we can put it before the ad hoc to discuss and decide if it's something they want to agendize, if that is really a word, for the next meeting. That way we would give adequate public notice. Is that something, you can just say yes. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Right.
All right. So let's see. Eric, can you email that? Let me see. If you email it to me, I can forward it to Ingrid, who could put it up so that people can actually see it and read it. Because I think that would be helpful.
Well, and the thing I'd like to add, Tracy, if I may, is we need to be, there's a murky line in the Brown Act between limited conversation of the Brown Act body to put something on the agenda versus actually having substantive deliberations, like what goes in, what doesn't go in, good idea, not a good idea. So really, as long as the focus is on whether or not to have that be an action agendized for the subsequent meeting, then that's appropriate.
Eric, can they take a straw vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
That'll probably be the best way.
Should we do a straw vote? I think we should also have some conversation about it. Is that okay?
As long as it's focused on whether to do it or not.
Okay, that's what I mean. Not the substance of it, but whether to agendize it for the next meeting.
Sure.
So let's take a few minutes. What do people, some thoughts on it? Not about the substance of it, but about whether to put it on for the next meeting. I would love for us to be able to, tackle it now, but we do have to respect the infamous Brown Act. So, and give the public a chance to know what we're doing. So, thoughts?
We have Ramona with her hand raised.
I just have another thought about the Brown Act. My understanding is this is an advisory committee to the city council. Is that true? So I just want to manage everybody's expectations, because we can make a recommendation to city council with the resolution, but ultimately the body that would approve it would be city council. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so I just want to try to manage everybody's expectations, because we are an advisory committee. We are within the Brown Act. The city, like the Petaluma Healthcare District Board, has to follow certain rules. So I just don't want us to approve something for you all to think it's a done deal when it may not be, because we've already asked. The question was already raised with city council regarding the person that we're talking about. So I just want to manage expectations.
Well, let me speak to that as well. Thank you, Ramona. Let me speak to that. And I'm going to speak gingerly here. Okay. What I want to say is that all the communication that you all share and the public has shared with us is continuously being reviewed, continuously. I will go that far to say that. So actions happen when actions, when they can happen, legally and within the bounds of the Brown Act and whatever else needs to happen. And council obviously fits right into that in terms of, what they do, and it all has to be done properly. So I just want to remind everyone that we're on the same page in terms of wanting this city to be the best that it can be. But there are processes that have to be followed. So this is a good step in that process, and we are definitely listening to you. Definitely. So let's keep going. And if anybody else have any comments about agendizing this for next time, and then we can take a straw vote.
Yes, we have 4 more hands raised.
Okay.
We have Claudia de la Pena, followed by Faith Ross.
Okay.
I just have a quick question because I don't understand the Brown Act as much as I'd like to, but are we in any kind of trouble by naming someone specifically or naming one by name, like putting in Stefan Perez?
Tracy, may I respond?
Yes, I'm looking at you, but you can't see me do it. Yes.
Thanks. Not so much directly for that reason, Claudia, but one thing I was going to comment when you all were done, but I guess I can do it now. If there are questions, we can address them. I don't think this body has a censure power. I don't think that's included in the powers with which you were created. That's something that even the city council has to have authority to do, and that's something that's narrowly prescribed. And I think that's what we call in the law ultra vires, which means beyond the power of the body. So in terms of championing and embracing its purposes that the council has assigned it, sure, in terms of exhorting its members and the public to focus on its challenging and important tasks, great. But the censure part, I can't recommend that that's something that this body, as a body, has been created with the authority to do. And I'm not sure it's, I guess I'll add, I don't know if it's helpful, but I'm not sure it's necessary for those other purposes. But I understand that the sentiment and the focus of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Tracy, we have Faith Ross.
Faith?
Hello.
Hey.
After listening to this and after listening to the city attorney and the fact that we were talking about putting this resolution on for next month and the fact that we have no censor power, then why are we doing it? We need to move on. We need to do what we were asked to do. And, I heard Sanjay's comments and everybody else's, and it's just hurting for us to be doing this and not getting on with what we need to do. Let's just go forward and get the recommendations out there.
Okay, thank you, Faith.
Next, we have Rabbi Ted Feldman.
Yes, actually, I want to second what Faith just said. I feel like we're giving the person additional power by now having taken 45 minutes of this meeting and not being able to deal with the issues that we're supposed to be dealing with. Mm-hmm. Now, I in no way, obviously, would support the participation of a white supremacist in this committee. It just, or would not welcome that person into our community, into our world. I understand that. But the work of this committee is now being held up and it's time to move forward. That's all.
Thank you.
The last hand raised is Anne Marie Daniels.
Hi, Anne Marie.
Hi, Tracy. So my thoughts are similar to Faith and Rabbi Feldman here. I'm disappointed that we've taken so long with this. I'm disappointed that we had this person in here. I'm disappointed in the vetting process. And I was on board with the idea of, the community groups, sending a representative, all of that stuff. All of that is true. But I also want to say that this is born out of a long process of the city responding to George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and everything that happened last year. And we've had deaths since then. Like Sean Monterosa died in Vallejo. And so I think I want us to focus back on those things. I want us to focus back on things that our city can do. Judging by the lack of presence today, I'm not sure if this is even something that we need to continue. And also, we wanted to have a longer time for public comment tonight. So that all to say, I am in favor of, Eric, thank you for writing that. And in Anland, we would, but Anland doesn't have a Brown Act.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so is there anyone else, or can we move on? And Aaron, can we move on now to the?
Yes.
Okay.
That was the last speaker.
Okay, thank you everyone for your comments. So because the question was asked, I do think that we should put it to the committee. And the question being, should we agendize discussing and voting on this resolution at the next meeting? And we will now move on to our other business. So let's take a roll call vote. Eric, is that proper?
Sure.
Okay.
You could ask for people to raise hands if they're in favor, however you'd like to do it. It's fine.
Let's do a roll call, because that way we won't miss anyone.
Okay.
All right. So Aaron, may I have help with the roll call, please?
Yes. One thing I want to check real quick is I think Sadie is as an attendee. Sadie, I'm going to allow you to speak just to verify it's you before promoting you up. Sadie Martinez, is that you?
Yeah, it's me.
Okay, I'll promote you up. Thank you.
I am.
Okay.
Okay. So Joel Bernard-Dequine.
So I just want to make sure this is to agendize the resolution on the next meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I agree to agendize it.
Liz Chacon. Angeles Cruz. Anne Marie Daniels.
I disagree. Nay.
Claudia de la Pena.
Nay.
Ramona Faith.
Nay.
Rabbi Ted Feldman.
Nay.
Anthony Franklin.
I agree.
Joanna Garcia.
Nay.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Is that a yes or no?
No.
I didn't hear that. What is it?
No, I don't agree.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Just everyone, because this is a vote, can you please just be clear? Zara Garcia.
Given the expectations, I'm going to have to say nay.
Hanan Hunai. Looks like we lost her. Eric Leland.
Yay.
Sonia Lowry.
Can you repeat what we're voting again?
Whether to agendize the resolution that Eric put forth for the next meeting.
Nay.
Wait, what was that?
Nay.
Nay, okay.
Sadie Martinez.
Nay.
Julia Main. Mike Miller,
Nay.
Joanna Pon,
Yes.
Stefan Perez,
Team to be on the same page.
Kenyatta Reynolds,
Creating opportunities.
No.
Argentina.
Where are we hearing background noise?
I'm answering the question. No.
I think it's Kenyatta's.
Oh, it's your background noise? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No problem. Okay.
Fabian Romo Macias,
Nay.
Faith Ross, Faith, can you unmute yourself?
No.
Mark Scott,
Nay.
Joe Sturdivant, Risa Tinsley Green, Risa, can you unmute yourself?
No.
Pedro Toledo,
Same.
is that a nay or is that a?
Just, it's a no.
Okay, thank you. Thought you said same, so I was, okay. Catherine Wells,
Nay.
Aaron Wilkins,
Because I can see where this vote is going out of principle. I agree.
okay. And Luz Zwire.
Nay.
All right, Tracy,
All right.
let me tally up real quick.
Okay.
While Aaron's tallying, Tracy, it's Ken Savona. Would it be appropriate to just acknowledge one comment and make the time useful here for the group?
Sure.
Right. Thank you. I wanted to just speak to a comment that Anne Marie Daniels made, and you referenced social media, and I just want to affirm for this group and also say thank you for the hours and the commitment you've made to this again this evening. We do screen social media and the hiring practice, and as your chief and as your police department, we will not tolerate white supremacy or hate in our staff. And we do screen for that, not only in the psychological evaluation, the background, as well as the polygraph. So I just wanted to share that information so that you know that as we move through this conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
So Tracy, my final tally is we have 6 absent. We have 5 yays and 17 nays. So the motion fails.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, everyone. Now let's get down to the business at hand. All right. So this work is so critically important. It is also very triggering. Okay. It is triggering, concepts like white fragility and white splaining and those concepts can sound like an insult, but as a woman of color, as a Black woman, I can tell you, they are real. They are real, and they can't be used to stop robust dialogue in this committee. So, what you all do outside of the committee and how you comport yourselves in these conversations, I have nothing to do with. But in this committee, I want us to go deep. I want us to be as authentic as we feel safe, because I do hear that many of you don't feel safe. And I just want you to know that I am telling you, if you see me walking down the streets of Petaluma, I hear everything you're saying. And everything is being taken into consideration, and so does the city and everybody on the city's committee. All I will tell you is that as a person who's been doing this work for 20 years, I would not associate myself or my firm with an entity, I don't care how much money I was paid, if I did not believe that they were on the path to doing the right thing and their intentions were proper. So let's get to work and let's do what we were brought here to do. I don't know if you guys remember this book. Can you see it? I mean, some of you are too young. I'm, in that senior category now. Dang it. I got the senior discount in Pharmaca for the first time in my life today. I was hurt. She didn't even ask for my driver's license. I was really upset. But anyway, this book, Good to Great by Jim Collins. Excellent, excellent, excellent book. And the reason I love this book is it's about getting the right people on the bus and making sure that you're building the right bus. Okay. The bus here is the city. It's the community of Petaluma. I'm in my living room because I can't be in that little studio of mine office. I got to stand up. So I don't know if I can do this. And is this okay? Can you see me? I just, I'm energized. One of the things I really like about this book is that he has a concept in here. Jim Collins has a concept in here called Big, Hairy, Audacious Goal. And a BHAG, okay? And what it's about, what that means is you pick something so aspirational that it's sea changing, right? It energizes you. So I don't want just run of the mill recommendations that we give to the council. I want us to use all this brain power and all this energy to come up with transformative suggestions for the council. Okay. We need them to be actionable. I'm not going to say reasonable because I don't think this work is about being reasonable. I think it's about being disruptive. So I want us to come up with 1 to 3 recommendations under community engagement that rock the boat, that push things forward, that propel this city forward, that we can coalesce around. All right. So let's see. It is about 7 o'clock. Let's see if we can rock this by 8 so that we still have 45 minutes for public comment, maybe 50, and then I can do a quick wrap up and set the stage for, what we need to finish. Because the city is only going to give us 6 meetings. This is number 3. We have a lot of work to do. You all are committed, otherwise you would not be here on a beautiful June evening. Let's get this done. Fair enough? Can I get a thumbs up? Does anybody want to give me a thumbs down? If you do, speak up now. Because what I'm going to say is if you don't believe in this committee, if you don't think we're here and serious about the work, I invite you to step off. I would love for everybody that's on here to stay. But if you don't believe that we're serious about this work, then I know you have better things to do with your time on a beautiful June Sunday evening. I would say a Tuesday evening, but I would hope you would stay because every time I hear from every single one of you, I'm energized because your perspectives matter. And to the point that several people have made, when I teach DER seminars, actually teach, this is facilitation. The first thing I start out with is do no harm. So what that means is if somebody of color tells you or of something that is different, a different sexual orientation, whatever it is, that they've been harmed or that you're harming them, I don't care what your intention is, listen to them, believe them. It's like the old, it's not old, but the Me Too movement brought forth, if a woman or a man or someone tells you they've been the victim of sexual assault, believe them, okay? Because it's too painful. People don't make this stuff up. So let's get to work. So if we can go to the slide that says definition of success, please. We're not going to have the slides up a lot because I need to see you guys. All right. So under definition of success, you all, I think almost all of you last time submitted your information. And I had to do a data sort, which I was pleased to do. Can everybody see the slides okay? See the slide? Okay. So here were the buckets. So out of 28, what is this? I brought it down to 10, about 28. So measurable success. This is the meta definition of success for the group. Measurable success metrics. Increased trust between community, city, and police. Everyone in the community can share without fear of retaliation. Reallocate funds from police department to the community. Large reduction in harm. Increased BIPOC and AAPI representation on council and government positions and committees. Alternative sources other than police department to register grievances and concerns. Reduce social and health disparities in the city. Chamber of Commerce engaging with the community, seen as a partner in improving race relations, and increased implementation of restorative justice. So we need to coalesce around a definition of success. Needs to be short and sweet. Think of it almost like a value statement, right? You guys have done vision, mission, and values, you know, in your organizations. So this is our value statement. So let's talk about it. What do you think about the sort? I promise I tried to uphold the integrity of what you wrote, but we did not need to look at 28 different definitions, because a lot of them coalesced under these 10. Everyone did. If there was a straggler, I would have put it up here. So comments, thoughts. Let's take a few minutes and discuss. Aaron, I'm going to ask your help for people to call on people, please. Anybody have their hand up?
Yes, Mike Miller.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Tracy. Thanks again for doing this, and thank you everyone on the council here for doing this as well. I would just love to zero in or focus as much as we can about the increased trust between community, city, and police. I'd like to definitely vote for that one. I think we have a fantastic opportunity here with Chief Savano and Deputy Chief Miller to really talk about the issues that are harming trust between people of color in our community and the police. That's not to say that they've done something wrong, but I think we as a community, we as a country, we as a city can do better. And I think this is a place where we can give the city council really actionable policy. I think trying to craft policy that the city can approve and enact that's going to unwind systemic racism and institutional injustice is really difficult and hard. But I think the one place where the city council does have a lot of power and authority and latitude to really craft something groundbreaking, as you said, as something that is really transformative, is in how we create, as Chief Savano said, a police that's grounded in consent. And so I would just really love for the committee and for our discussions to really, since we have a limited number of meetings left, and the more we can do to really allow or give the city recommendations on ways that we can craft policy that changes how we interact with police, I think would be really valuable.
You know, that is extremely well said. Extremely well said, Mike, because trust, right? Trust is a vessel. It's a huge vessel, and it's an important vessel, because without that, you can't get anything done. It's all, you know, it's like, look at the discussion we had for an hour, really centered into lack of trust that we're protecting people, that we're upholding the values that we stated. So, and I can assure you we are, but we need to really focus on how do you create that trust so we can start building together. I really like what you said. So I always like what you all say. This is what I'm saying. This is such important work. Let's get to it. So someone else. Thank you, Mike. What do you think? What do you like what Mike said? Is there another on the Jeopardy board that you like?
We have Faith Ross.
Hey, Faith.
I love what Mike said. And, you know, that includes all of us. We don't have to break ourselves down. There's increased trust between the community, the city, the government stuff, the police, and that's what we're here for. And that would really be success to me.
Yeah.
So thank you for that one.
Thank you. And what it does is it creates, you know, like a I want to show you something. Hold on, don't go anywhere. Okay. You're probably saying, you're all probably saying, what the heck is Tracy doing? So when during last year, when all this craziness was going on, I started knitting. And I don't know if you can see this, but what these are these really beautiful wraps, and they're like 7 yarns. I only know 1 stitch, so don't expect anything fancy. But the whole point is, the reason it's beautiful, that they're beautiful, is because they're all different. They're like 5 different yarns, all different types. And it's sort of they organically develop, right? I don't know how the patterns are going to come out. I don't know how the colors are going to work. But the beauty of it is, I trust that in my instinct for creation. And so that when it comes, the knitting, the fabric that comes out at the end is beautiful, because it's a whole bunch of different things together that make it strong and beautiful. And I think if we can do that, if we can meld different ideas under one of these meta buckets, I think this one that Mike highlighted really does serve as a nice vessel to hold all of this. So others.
Hey Tracy, I don't want to take us away from this topic because it's really good, but I want to remind our committee that it's not appropriate for committee members to be answering questions to the public. So that's just a reminder. Please do not do that. Okay. The next person with their hand raised is Zaira.
Hi, Zaira.
Yeah, the other bucket that I really like to focus on is reallocate funds from police department to community.
Okay.
So refunding to a community as well.
So say a little bit more about that. You know, what? Tell us why you like that. What about it? What is it? What's inside of that for you?
Yeah. So for me, well, not just for me, because I don't just represent myself. But it's just kind of looking at financial costs on how we are. Instead of, for example, one great example is funding $80,000 in rifles for Petaluma Police Department. That $80,000 could have been given to something else, like maybe more social services, more health services, you know, anything to refund the community that kind of takes away from not needing those rifles. So that's just kind of one example that comes to mind.
Okay.
And it's just preventative measures as well. It kind of helps with preventative measures. So just to kind of keep it short,
No. Okay. So maybe, Zaira, I'm going to just stay off mute for a second because I want to really flesh this out with you. So maybe it's about, is there any way that could go under the increased trust between police, city, and the community?
Oh, 100% for sure.
Okay. So maybe we could subsume that under there. And I'm not saying make it less, but make it be a part of that conversation.
As long as it's a part of a conversation, and when, you know, I'm down for that.
So maybe that's increased trust between city, community, city, police. I'm going to put a note in here that also looks at reallocation of funding. Is that okay? Those words okay? Okay.
Yes, reallocation of funding.
Okay. Thank you very much. Others?
Yes, the next hand we have raised is Claudia de la Pena.
Hey, Claudia.
Hey, so I like the idea of the reallocating funds being mixed in with the increased trust, but I think you could also throw in the everyone in the community can share without fear of retaliation. I think the three of those could live together.
Okay. And when we say share, I mean, I literally took someone's words that captured, you know, what probably 10 or 12 other people said in their definition of success. But what does that mean to you when what does the word share mean?
Well, you have organizations here in Petaluma, like Petaluma Blacks for Community Development. And every year they have a, you know, we look at Black History Month.
Right.
And I do recall several of us mentioning having things like, you know, now I have to think of it. Well, just, you know, celebration, diversity celebration, having festivals or celebrations around that. But you want to make, you know, you want to feel safe if you're doing things like that within the community.
Okay. Thank you. Got it. That's helpful. Mr. Zavala, do we have others?
Yes. Catherine Wells.
Hey, Catherine.
Hi, Tracy. Thanks so much. So I recognize and understand the majority of the conversation that is surrounding policing here in town, but I really love this idea of including the city in this whole conversation, because I went back to look at where this all came from, and a lot of this came from polling for policing, but a lot of it also came from citywide polling. And so I just want to make sure that we include that this is really sort of citywide. So I just wanted to reiterate that I like the idea of community, city, and policing, because we have, I believe, many issues, many concerns to address that are perhaps within the police department, but separately as well. So I just like the idea of that as in addition to, like, a lot of these do fall under, I think, that same category of everyone being able to share without fear. alternative, well, maybe not complaints, but having somewhere else to talk to and share their concerns. This all feels like kind of falling under that same category. So just kind of reiterating that I like this sort of widespread term of increased trust amongst everyone.
Thank you, because trust, you know, if there is a heightened sense of trust, there's more willingness to share. If you don't trust, you're not going to share, or it's going to be inauthentic, and it's going to be, you know, frankly, crap. So, okay. So I have a question. Kenyatta, I think you put a comment in the chat, which I don't read when I'm doing this because I can't. I'm not that good. So would you mind sharing? I think you responded, but in chat.
Yeah, I thought it was, I didn't realize it was to public comment. I apologize. I thought it was just internal.
No, that's okay.
I was just saying it's frustrating that we had to spend time to vote on the city condemning white supremacy. I just thought it's kind of ridiculous that we have to vote on it and then not have the assurance that when it goes to city council that they're going to say like, yeah, like we'll put out this statement. So I just thought it was kind of ridiculous.
Well, we don't
45 minutes to get there.
Okay, but we needed to because there's been a heck of a lot more time and energy spent outside of this committee. So people, you know,
Correct.
needed to do
Yeah, but it was, I mean, had they just done it from the beginning instead of saying whatever those 3 people signed, we wouldn't even had to have spent 45 minutes today doing that. So I just thought it was kind of a ridiculous situation to go back. Like we're just like retracking something they could have already done.
Okay, I hear you. But on this topic, what's your input on this? Because we need your input on this.
Yeah,
I'm putting you on the spot.
You are. I was gonna say increased trust between community, city, and police. I think after this last incident in the last week, that's a big one for me.
Okay.
Not with our member that's not here tonight, but with an accident and a call to service that was, I think, not handled well. I think that just brought forth more lack of trust.
Okay.
And so that would definitely be a big one for me.
Okay, so you would support this?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd want to put under it? You know, of the other buckets?
I have been in agreement with what everyone has been saying, and as far as adding buckets, so that's why I haven't said anything. But yeah, I think we're on the right track.
All right. Okay, thanks. Okay, Mr. Zavala.
Yes, we have Ramona Faith, followed by Rabbi Ted Feldman.
Okay, Ramona.
Yeah, I wanted some clarity because I may be the only one that's a little bit confused, but words matter to me. So when we say city, are we talking about the community? When we say community, are we referring to the city? Because when I'm looking at the city, does the city mean the city of Petaluma, the council and the mayor and the police department, or does the city mean the community?
Okay, so let me answer that, right? Because I was the one that did the sort. So I created this bucket because all 3 of those were you know, in different under different people's definition of success, but the trust needed to be increased between all 3 entities. So the community is the city, right? I mean, the people in the city, okay? The city is city government in terms of my interpretation. And then the police are the police. Does that make sense?
Yes. So another clarifying question on the right bottom. When you say disparities in the city, are you talking about the city or the community?
That would be the community. Right. That would be the community. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and I just want to reflect back on the main category that we're supposed to be focusing on, and that is community relations, right? I mean, isn't that the bucket that we chose for the top across all sectors?
Community engagement.
Across all sectors.
Across all sectors.
Right. And the police policies are our next focus.
They can be. See, now I don't.
I thought that they were.
They're supposed to be, but I'm saying if we, depending on what we do with this, I don't want to narrow the process. If there are things under police policies that people want to discuss, you know, they make it say the committee wants to come up with a recommendation that's specific. There's a police policy that might increase trust. right? Amongst those all three, it certainly could come out of today's work or under this
Okay.
bucket.
Okay, so I think that the bucket that was shared, the increased trust between community, city, and police, I think that's great as long as it's all inclusive.
Okay.
It's not just trust between the community, like a community resident like me in the city or me and the police. It can be me and you.
Right.
It's everyone.
And that's really important. Exactly. You know,
Okay.
you got to feel safe that you can walk down the street and not feel that another community member is going to harass you. Or
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Got it.
Because I have many conversations with the community where the police in the city are not there.
Mm-hmm.
And people are having a hard time feeling safe with community members that aren't city or police. So I don't feel comfortable calling city and police out specifically. I'd feel more comfortable calling it community across all sectors myself.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Zavala. Others?
Yes, we have Rabbi Ted Feldman.
Rabbi.
Yes, I'm here. So when I look at this list, I see two different kinds of things. I think one is goals, increased trust, reduction in harm, and then there are actions here.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to write to the city council and say our committee met for all these hours and we recommend increased trust in the community. We're going to, it seems to me, we're going to want to be recommending specific programs.
Right.
So that the Chamber of Commerce be engaged, alternate sources to register. I would see maybe a community ombudsman program of some sort that's set up with very clear parameters that we would recommend to the city. So I think we have to set, part of this is motherhood and apple pie in terms of increase. It needs to be there. I'm not saying it's there already and we don't need to work on it, but our recommendations need to be concrete,
right?
Specific suggestions to the city council. And it seems to me representation on government committees and stuff like, et cetera, for BIPOC and AAPI, the specific programs, actions, that's what we have to recommend, not the intangible things that we hope are the result of that. Anyway, that's my comment on this.
No, thank you. So this, I want to clarify. That's a really good point. This is the big value statement, right? This is the big bucket. We're going to do the tactical in a few minutes. I promise. We'll get down to what are the 1 to 3 ideas that as a committee we want to give to the council to think about. But we have to have this bucket first, our definition of success.
But alternate sources to register grievances is not a value.
But it was a definition of success from some people in the group. So we have to put it up.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, yeah. No problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, Aaron?
Yes, we have 4 more. We have Anne Marie Daniels, followed by Pedro Toledo, followed by Joanna Pond, and then followed by Anthony Franklin.
Okay, and then after that, I think we need to unless we have somebody else with a really burning point, we need to then move to the tactical. So go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I agree with Rabbi Feldman. I'm agreeing with you a lot, Rabbi, today. And here's the thing. I personally would like to focus on reallocation of funds and reduce social and health disparities within the city, aka the community. I think those are buckets that can be actionable. And I think that the large value statement should be a large action like reallocate funds and to the community. And then we can go into details on what we would like to see. I think there's already stuff happening with increased trust and that's in Obama's 21st century policing, and Ken and Peggy have talked about a lot of that already in these meetings. And so I'm sure that they could talk more. And if you follow Petaluma Police on Facebook, we always see, the community engagement that they're trying to do as far as increasing trust. So I think if we can focus on even on the large scale, a large action, like, reallocating funds, I think that would be my preference, my vote.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Pedro Toledo?
Yeah, thank you. So, I'm in agreement about trust and increasing trust in the community. And I think a lot of that is tied to representation and making sure that there is representation in leadership and in city government and in the committees and in government in general, and ensuring that people see themselves in the government process, are engaged with government process, are able to meaningfully participate in the process, and are invested in our community. And I think representation and trust go hand in hand. I think it's hard to have that trust if you don't see yourself in the decision-making bodies, right? And it oftentimes, and if you don't, if the decisions of the bodies don't particularly always reflect the goals and values of your of certain constituencies, or reflect other goals. And so it's important for leaders to hear the community, and one way to do that is just have the community represented in government, and or to do more to engage all people in the community, right? It may not be that there's representation, but at least there's a meaningful efforts to engage everybody, and that takes time and energy. So
thank you. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Okay, next person.
Joanna Pond.
Hi, Joanna.
Hi. Actually wanted to add something else, focusing on large reduction in harm. Because when I look at all of these different boxes, it seems like possibly and likely that was the root cause. You know, if you have lack of trust, fear of retaliation, if you feel like you need restorative justice, it's because you were harmed in some way. And so what would that look like for the city, the police, the community to really measure a reduction in harm?
I like it. So, okay, now where are you, Joanna? Okay, so what about this? I'm putting this for the group's consideration. What about large reduction in harm through increased trust between community, city, and police, so that there's a causal relationship? What do you think? Because I think what you said something really important. Large reduction, we wouldn't be here if there hadn't been harm. We would not be here. So I think we need to state that, and then what we're our general value about what we want to do about it. In general, we're going to get to the specifics. What do people think? Can I get thumbs up, thumbs down? Tracy, you're crazy. I don't care. Just give me some reaction. Zaira, I'm looking at you. Okay, all right. Where's Kenyatta? I got Kenyatta. Okay, all right. So we can think about that. I think we have 2 more speakers. Is that right?
Yes, we have Anthony Franklin, followed by Mike Miller.
Hi, Anthony.
Hey, good evening. So I just want to echo what people have said about increased trust, not just with the police, but the community at large and with our city government, which leads me to the second part. What are some things we can do to getting increased BIPOC and AAPI representation on the council, government positions and committees? And that's an aspirational goal. We'll have to define how we would go about that. What would our recommendations be? But I think there would be a lot more understanding if a lot of those positions were more reflective of what the community looked like as a whole.
Okay. Thank you. And as we said before with Pedro, representation matters. It does make a difference. So thank you. And I think we have one last person. Mike, is that Mike or Anthony?
Yes, we have Mike Miller, and then Faith just raised her hand.
Okay.
Hi, Tracy. Thanks for hearing from me again. I know this is twice, so I will try and be brief. Just 2 quick points I wanted to sort of get out there. I really appreciate everyone's feedback and input. I think it's been really valuable and fantastic. One thing I wanted to say about the trust part of that, and I think it goes back to something that Zahar mentioned about the allocation of the funds for the assault rifles for the police. I think that's an example of whichever side you fall on that, whether you agree or disagree with that allocation of funds, I think that's a place where the city, and I am sort of putting that at the city because I think they approved that money. That's a place where I think the city lost some trust with the community. And I think that's evident by the fact that we're still talking about this spend to this day. So I think when we're talking about trust between the community and the city, how they spend their money, you know, a budget is your values expressed in monetary terms. How they spent that money, I think, damaged some of that trust with the community. And the second point I wanted to make that sort of speaks to sort of community member on community member trust. I think that part of our social contract and really part of our legal system, we have a really good way of dealing with sort of citizen on citizen acts of aggression or even acts of violence or acts of behaving badly. But I think what we've seen throughout the years in so many ways across the country, so many hashtags that I won't even try and list them all right now, is that our ability as a community to police the police, to deal with when it's the police that are the ones that have abused that trust, when it's the police that are the ones that have behaved badly. We've seen too many situations where the police have not been able to be held accountable by the community for that action. So I think that's why it's really important to focus on that trust between the community and the police, because I think that's a place where we have not been able to see enough accountability for police misaction when it does occur.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And I think we had one more, and that's Faith.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I'm getting a little confused here. So last week we talked about definitions of success, and these are the things that we as a committee felt would get us to that success. So the next step is for us to define or make those items of how do we get here? And that's where we would talk about police policies and city and all of the other things. Is that right? Or do I have it totally wrong?
No, Faith, you never have it totally wrong. You know that. Okay, no, there's a subtle difference. So this is the mega bucket, right? This is the mega bucket. And then what we're going to do next in record time is to come up with 1 to 3 recommendations under our, very specific think of them as tactical suggestions, right? SMART goals. They're going to be time bound, measurable, etc., based upon what our overall meta bucket is. So at this point, it's sounding like large reduction in harm, through increased, or not large reduction in harm through increased trust between community, city, and police. That sounds like where we're landing as the main bucket, and then we'll go to the innovative ideas next. Does that make sense? That support that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So Aaron, I don't think we have anyone else, right?
Ramona raised her hand for a second, but it's
I just want to, as long as we're clear that it's not just between the community and the city and the community and the police. It's between the community.
It's everything.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So think of, you guys are familiar with the term intersectionality.
Yes.
So it's where all of these things intersect. Okay. So that's what we're looking at. So if Ingrid, if you could capture this, large reduction in harm, I'm being colons today. I don't know. Large reduction in harm through increased trust between community / city / police. So the overarching goal is reduction in harm and putting everybody in this and by increasing trust. So let's go to the next slide, please. I want to go to the slide that says community engagement, innovative ideas. There we go. All right. You guys are quite I shouldn't say you guys. You all, pardon my pronoun, are quite a prolific bunch. And there were 140 ideas, plus ideas. Okay. So I had to code these, and I hope you'll trust my coding. I went, and did it several times, and I didn't want to leave out any of the general concepts. So the specific ideas, these were innovative ideas. So now we're going to figure out innovative ideas that go under our big bucket. Creation of a cultural community center book clubs,
Building
films,
trust.
history, cultural festivals. Next, increased diversity in schools, administration, credentialed staff, increased ethnic studies education, zoning reform to include more apartments and affordable housing, series of confidential restorative justice circles, civilian-led dispatch system, reporting mechanism for bias incidents, 800 number, citywide bias training offered, create a city-sponsored TV station to air programming on DEI, increased community policing, more involvement in school functions and sports was an example, funding for a job to rebrand the city with a focus on creating more diversity and inclusion, and police in the community review policy for carrying weapons and screening for past misconduct bias, which I think the chief somewhat addressed earlier, in terms of what they have the screening they do. So what are your thoughts? I mean, I'm telling you, there's 140 ideas coalesced down into about 11. But remember, what we're working with here is reducing harm and increasing trust for all of the three entities, community, city, and police. Reducing harm and through increasing trust. So do those support that? Or some of these that support that?
Kenyatta with her hand raised, followed by Catherine.
Hi, Kenyatta.
Hi, I have just a clarifying question, I guess, for Ken Savano. So he said earlier that they do the screenings. Is that current? So the people that have been on the force didn't go through those screenings? Because I know for a fact a lot of them do have some maybe deep-rooted bias and or racism inside. So is that something that's a new thing? So that's for the new officers that have been hired in the last year, or does that go all the way back?
It's every officer. So the deputy chief and I, that's one of the most important decisions that we make in reviewing those background investigations. And if there's any indication at all, well, number one, it would never make it to my office. But that screening for bias is part of the post dimensions by the state for good moral character. And we would not hire someone that had any behavior, activity, or history like that. So it's inclusive. And if you're referring to members in our department, in this community, I would hope you'd bring that information forward to us, because we would not accept it.
I still don't think you answered. So when did this train? So this has been forever. This screening has been, and every officer ever that's been an officer.
Wait. Let's stop, because what we need to do with this is we can go down. Let's first figure out.
Well, I just want to know if it's something that I want to not see. Like if it's something that needs, if it's going to be a screening that they're going to go back and screen everybody, then we can, then great. I mean, then we don't need to have that one. But if it's something that like, not every officer has been screened, you know what I mean? If it's just the new officers,
I hear
great. But I'm wondering for past officers, if it's a back screening, if that makes sense.
Yeah, if they're checking out everybody that's in the department.
Yes.
Right.
And
Sorry, Tracy. Yes, I understand what you're asking, Kenyatta.
Yeah.
And the answer is yes. Everyone that is currently employed in the Petaluma Police Department went through that same screening process. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for the clarification. Okay, and I can see why that can help you, Kenyatta, decide, where you want to put your emphasis. Okay, Aaron, how are we? Do we have somebody else?
Yes, we have about 4 more hands raised.
Okay.
I briefly wanted to apologize to the Spanish-speaking community, as there looks like there was a little bit of a lapse on translation, but we are back and running. And then just a reminder from our translator to just slow down if you can, so that he can translate.
He's talking to me, and I try, you guys. I get excited. Okay, all right. Who's the next person?
We have Catherine Wells.
Hi, Catherine.
Hi, Tracy. So what I just want to give you my feedback on these that are on the screen, and it's going to tie directly into what I said earlier, is that I love the ideas that are promoting across the city, across the community.
Mm-hmm.
So the creation of a cultural committee, community center, diversity in schools, citywide bias training, and perhaps a job within the city to focus on that diversity and inclusion. So those two might be the same thing, the citywide bias training and the job that rebrands the city with a focus on creating more diversity and inclusion. Perhaps that's the same thing, I don't know. But I just really love those that go across the city, because that would include city staff as well as police staff in some of those trainings, and the diversity and inclusion within the city.
Well, you're right on. And then I want to clarify, you're making me think of something I need to clarify. This one that says citywide bias training.
Yes.
That was a mashup of several different people's, but it was not just but city with it says capital because it's the first word, right? You know, in the thing, but it meaning it's really community-wide bias training.
Oh, even better.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are making me think about, making sure these words are really precise. So that's really community-wide bias training.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, you're welcome. Aaron.
Next, we have Anne Marie Daniels, followed by Eric Leland, and we do have 4 others after. I do see.
All right, you guys. Now, I know. Okay, we have an issue because I was going to tell you to speak quickly, but then I'm going to be killed by the translator. So I don't know. Maybe brevity. Okay, so we can walk out of here with some ideas. So let's go.
I can be brief. I studied poetry in college.
Oh, are you going to do spoken word for us?
No, I won't.
Haiku.
Okay. So here's my thoughts. I think we already have cultural centers and cultural organizations that could use support. So instead of creating a new one for, inclusivity, we could reallocate funds towards the community organizations that already exist. I also want to put a big thumbs up on zoning reform to include more apartments and affordable housing. I know that Brian Barnacle and the rest of the city council have, put some focus on that. I'd love to see more of that. Your girl has to sell a lot of ukuleles to pay rent in the city. And I also want to make sure that we focus on police and the community. I want to reiterate that this is born out of the city's response to the national crisis around George Floyd's death and all of that's inherent here. And I want to also acknowledge that Ken Savano and the department, thank you for clarifying on the checks. I appreciate that. I wasn't aware that we were doing social media checks on our police department. I think that makes a big difference. I don't know if you have Gen Z folks doing some deep dives for some memes there, but I'm happy to hear that. But there always can be more in that sense. I want to, applaud Mike for saying that, community, citizen versus citizen transgressions do have a place and a way to be, monitored and policed, and there's retribution there. But when it comes to the relationship between community and the police, there is a difference in power. And that might be partially why some of us on this call want to shy away from pointing at the disparity in this relationship between the police. I'm not at all saying, I respect Ken Savano a lot, but I'm not at all saying that in any kind of disparaging way, but we really need to look at that specific relationship because this is why we are here. That's how we got here. So the larger this group gets and the more we get involved in these processes, the more we'll get diluted. So I do not want a general approach. I want a specific approach on certain things. So that's what I would say. We have the cultural organizations. Let's support them. There's a lot of motion towards zoning and reform around affordable housing. Let's support that, but let's really specifically look at the police and the community.
Okay, thank you. How many do we have left, Aaron? We need to stop after this next bunch.
Sorry, we have 5. So we have Eric Leland, followed by Claudia de la Pena, followed by Aaron Wilkins, followed by Mike Miller, followed by Joel Bruner DeKeen.
Okay, and then after that, I have to make the decision that we need to stop so we can move to the next step. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I think it just to go towards reducing harm, we need to focus on learning about crises and making that sort of as equitable, as responsible as possible. So, and it occurs to me that civilian-led dispatch system and reporting mechanism for bias incidents really could be one item. I mean, for instance, Seattle created something called the Community Safety and Communications Center, which is a body of government separate from the police that deals with dispatch as well as reporting mechanisms in order to engender more reporting and learning more about these incidents and responding in a better way with multiple agencies.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Claudia De La Pena.
Hi, very quickly. I agree with what Eric said about combining the two civilian-led dispatch and the reporting mechanism boxes into one. We do not have a multicultural center. So we do have, cultural organizations, but we do not have one specific building that all of these different organizations could be making use of. So I would like us to, if we could push that forward, that would be great. And part of that could include the series of confidential restorative justice circles that could happen within the multicultural center. And I think, and Petaluma does have its own local television station. So you wouldn't need to create one. You would just need to create the programming that would cover, diversity and equity and inclusion.
Okay. Thank you.
Erin Wilkins.
Hi, I'd like to add, I see two things going on here with this bucket. One I see is more primary goals that speak to this, our goal here of reducing harm by increasing trust. Those would be primarily, let's see, policing the community, number one, as well as reporting mechanisms for bias, zoning reform, and then increased BIPOC representation in the city. I think those points are necessary before the more aspirational goals, such as creating a whole job to rebrand the city or creating a cultural center. I'm here representing the Japanese American Citizens League, and right now we're currently offering free self-defense classes for Asian elders and business owners, and we don't feel safe putting on the flyers where the location is. Physically safe.
I understand that.
So I just want to put that forward, that I love how Claudia De La Pena said that we need a community space, but how do we even make that safe at this point?
Okay. Thank you.
Mike Miller.
Hi, I just wanted to try and zero in on the review policy for carrying weapons. I think that if anyone, be it a police officer or a citizen in our community, walks up to me with a weapon, I am going to feel less trust for them because they are carrying a deadly weapon that can cause harm. So if this is about reducing harm and building trust, to me, that is the most innovative idea for accomplishing both those goals, is to review the policy for when police are carrying weapons. We had a really great conversation in our last meeting about how when police do come to community engagement events, how when they are wearing their sidearms and have all of their gear on them, that can really send the wrong impression to people about that level of trust, and that can increase that sense of fear, especially given the inverted power dynamic, because police are held to a different standard than community members are. And the last thing I'll say is I have lived in a country for 5 years where the police do not carry weapons as a sidearm to every engagement with the community. And it did, in a very substantial way, increase that sense of trust that the community had with the police, because they were not carrying a deadly weapon all the time. So I would really like to advocate for reviewing the police policy for carrying weapons as a way of reducing harm and building trust between the community and the police.
Thank you.
And lastly, Joel Bruner DeKeen.
Thanks, Aaron, and thank you, Tracy, for your time. You know, thinking about the theme of reducing harm by increasing trust, my thoughts as an educator always go back to the kids and how can we rephrase this to make a different future for them. And I think the increased diversity in schools, the idea by Claudia de la Pena that said creation of a multicultural community center. We have these resources in our schools called librarians, which are very infrequently used, but are a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of information and can make connections across the community between each other and within their own districts. And I think, you know, I think about my own school district personally. We're a little 2 elementary school district, the WA school district. And, you know, we just have in the last couple of years started flying a pride flag at our school during June. You know, I do every effort that I can to celebrate Black History Month, Women's History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, AAPI Month. And it's unfortunately not always a school-wide learning experience because of everything else that's put on to education. That's a whole other separate issue that I'm not even going to go into there. But, you know, I really think that number one, we need to kind of get back to that basis within our community to educate the children, to let them know there are people different than them out there, no matter what school they attend. This is their community. Their community has many different parts and many different constituents in it. The other thing I wanted to say, which kind of goes back to what Mike Miller had talked about, and we had that, I agree, had a great discussion like last month about the increased community involvement with the police officers, but in a less intimidating. And I will say, even as a white male, when I see a police officer, I'm intimidated, and that's just bred within me, I think, because of growing up and experiences that we go through. But you know, seeing police officers not decked out in all their tactical gear and their guns and the weapons, to me, that's very intimidating for especially a little child or kids in an elementary school level. I think that there's a different way in which they can communicate and interact with these civil servants that live in our community. They're supposed to be there to provide for us and protect us, and us as citizens also having our responsibilities to make sure that we're doing the right things themselves. But, you know, even as being a parent and going to soccer games or thinking about visits at my own school with police officers, the only time a police officer visits our school is when there's an incident that happens that then requires intervention by them. Or it's 6th grade DARE education that, you know, comes and goes with the financing. And so I really think that there needs to be some discussion around creating an environment in which police officers are more I don't want to say inviting, because they should be part of the community, but their presence is not so much of a intimidating presence because, oh, the police are here. Are they here at this event because they've been invited, they want to join our community? Is it because something's happened here and now everybody's staring at the police officers wondering what's going to happen from that? And then, you know, it's perceptions also that really can change the community. So I agree that the creation of this community center, the increased diversity in schools, and having police officers look differently, even if it's not an on-duty officer that's got, you know, all the weapons. How about a detective? I know detectives probably don't have the same gear as other officers do. So really thinking about that, and how can we get them more involved in the schools in a positive way, getting them to know the students in the schools and letting them know who they are and what their jobs are. And hey, you know, I see you, and just let it be so that they feel more comfortable, you know? And so I think for me, those are the most important things. And yeah, so thanks for allowing me to share.
No, thank you. Thank you for bringing that perspective about the children back into the conversation. Is that it, Aaron? Please tell me yes.
Tracy, you do have Chief Savannah with his hand raised, and we have Kenyatta as well.
You're killing me. Okay, Chief, go ahead.
I think that Joel brings up a really important point that I just want to highlight. As a progressive 21st century policing agency, we want exactly what you just described. We've really been in kind of a crisis mode with staffing. In the downturn, we were reduced by 17 officers, and we've had trouble maintaining staffing for many years. Not just the positions were still allocated, but having lost so many, a lot of our programs suffered. You mentioned one, the DARE program, coming and going with funding. We don't want to only be there when something's wrong or something has happened. We want to have that available time, and I think we talked about that at one of the first meetings. Available time is something that we have to create. We can't just be responding and reacting to situations. That's not going to allow us to create opportunities where we improve this relationship. So Joel, thank you. That's an important point. I just want you to know we want the same thing, and I'm optimistic with the support from the community, from this committee, and our policymakers, that we're placing that emphasis where it needs to be, so we can return to that. So thank you for making that point, and I just want to let you know we want the same.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, and Kenyatta?
It's okay, Tracy.
No, go ahead. Wait a minute. No. I'm all prepared for you. Go ahead.
I guess I had an incident at my house that I didn't call the police because it was stupid. Like, it was just like a kid knocking down my little free library, like super dumb. But two police officers showed up at my house, like unsolicited. Like, I didn't ask them to show up, and they were like, "Do you want to press charges?" And I think one of the things is like, no, I don't want to press charges because I'm going to be the person that's going to, although she's the angry black lady that pressed charges on the white kids that pushed over her library. When in fact, all that I would love, and kind of to his point, is that the police would know who these kids are because they've seen them throughout the years at elementary schools, and just go over to their house and be like, knock it off. Like, why are you doing that? Like, stop being a jerk. Right. And so but they didn't ask for the video or to see the picture, any of that. So that they could go and do that as a community member. It was only just as the police, like, do you want to press charges? And because I said no, like, that was the end of it. But really, it would be nice if as a community, they could just be like, oh yeah, that's Joe Bob, and we're going to go knock on his door and be like, knock it off, dude, like, find something else to do if you're bored, right? And so it has nothing to do with staffing because 2 people showed up at my house. So, and I didn't call for them. So I just feel like sometimes it's so like, police and like the police are the police all the time, and don't step out of that and just become community members. That's all I got.
So I do want to let the chief respond to that.
Thank you, Tracy. Kenyatta, I understand the point that you're making, and I would just say this, that I wish you would have called us and we could have discussed. One of the questions that we do ask is, how would you like us to help handle that? For us, it was posted, I believe, on Nextdoor. And it came to our attention along with the photo. I think if we knew who those juveniles were, we would have addressed it that way, but the identity of them was still in question, unless you provided it, and I just don't know that. But, I think we have to start at a place where we realize to address this, especially with our youth, we have to work together. And I can appreciate, at least from our standpoint, several of the incidents that have been reported don't necessarily rise to the level of a crime. And in this case, it was alleged, at least from the post, that there was a vandalism that occurred. And so we certainly didn't want to not respond or overlook an opportunity to address a hate crime if that's what it was. So just because we get involved and we ask that question, we're just trying to make sure we're meeting your needs as the person involved. But how we resolve it is a collaborative effort.
Yeah,
we need to know about it. That's all. I want to make that point.
We'll have to agree to disagree on that one then, Ken.
Okay. So, one of the things,
Tracy.
Yeah.
Can I had my hand up. I just just to add on here. I think this is a good conversation, but one of the things that we are talking about is creating other entities that could be called in a scenario like this, so that it's not us asking the police to do everything. And like, we are like, that's why the CAHOOTS model, and I'm glad we're looking into that, is going to, help address with mental health. But things like helping the youth and, kind of saying, "Hey, Joe Bob," like that doesn't necessarily, and I would say that it shouldn't be a police officer's job. I initially raised my hand because I had a question for Ken on because Mike Miller mentioned the review of carrying, weapons and things like that. And my question is, as far as the police in Petaluma are concerned, one of the largest inequities in between a regular citizen committing a crime and a police officer committing a crime is things like qualified immunity. And I know we don't have a lot of time, but is that something that you could address, the qualified immunity within our police force in our department?
Yes, and I do think it does deserve more conversation, but I can tell you that there are other government elected positions that have full immunity, and I want to emphasize that ours is qualified. It doesn't mean that we can just do anything without impunity. And so I understand the question. I understand why you're asking it, but it does require quite a bit more to discuss in detail that I don't know we have time for tonight, but it is certainly within the realm of some of the future agenda items.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to it's more immunity than the regular citizen has. So
yeah,
but yeah, I would love to talk about it more.
All right, I made a note. Okay, so Aaron, please tell me that no one else has their hand up.
No one else has their hand up.
Okay. All right. Thank you all for all that comment. So I want to throw out an idea. It's just a brainstorm, and the brain's getting a little old, so work with me. Because at this point, what we could do is the tried and true, let's vote and, do a weighted vote and see where we come out. But I just want to put one idea out there quickly. So, it's this whole notion of good to great, big, hairy, audacious goal. What about a community center, a cultural center? I don't like the term community, a cultural center, multicultural, right? That is a vessel for having these types of conversations. That is a vessel for education. That is a vessel where, and Chief, I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know the rules, but maybe when the police come, unless there's a call for service, they come in polos. They don't come in full regalia unless it's, they have to. But, where we create this space where you can do education, you can do bias training, you can maybe have, if we flesh that out and decide that we want to recommend a civilian-led dispatch system, maybe it's housed there. I'm just throwing some different ideas out. The reporting mechanism for bias, maybe that can be the place, where that entity sits. I'm just throwing some things out there. Now, when I threw that idea out, I am one that believes in concrete action. So I'm not saying let's have a cultural center where we're going to play different diverse music and sit around and sip tea from around the world and sing Kumbaya. I could care less about that. What I'm saying is a place where its mission, think like a think tank, it's a place where you go, and that's what the energy is about, and that's what the programming is about, and you get things done. So I don't know. Want to discuss that for just a few minutes, or would you like to, say, Tracy, your idea is whack, and we're moving on to vote on those that are up here? What do you think?
We have Aaron Wilkins, followed by Claudia de la Pena.
Okay.
Yeah, Tracy, I'm not against that idea, but it gets to the heart of what I was trying to communicate earlier is, in that space, say there was a space like that was created, right. Would it also be a space where there would be, a committee or a community body that's like reviewing policy for carrying weapons?
You can do it all in there.
I'm just curious how that would actually look. My concern would be that it would be more of like a kind of a kumbaya circle. That would be my concern, as opposed to like where's the structure to actually create some systemic change?
Right. Right. Well, I meant what I said about I'm not here for kumbaya, right? So if we thought that was a good idea, then the next step is to flesh out what are the actual marching orders for that center. What would we recommend that they do in a concrete, is it that you do have the civilian-led dispatch there, and we flesh that out? But it's a thought. I mean, it's a thought. So thank you for testing that, pushing back on that. Others?
Claudia de la Pena?
Claudia?
Hi. Yeah, I like the idea of the multicultural center basically operating as a hub.
Yeah.
When it comes to, all the different ideas, that's just about creating programs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a kumbaya kind of person, but
right.
Music, art, things of that nature are included in culture.
Yeah.
So, it's multicultural, but it's also going to operate as a place for community to, hammer out certain issues and so forth.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. But that's just putting the idea out there. Is there anyone else?
Yes, we have 5 hands raised. So,
you guys are a chatty group. I love it. Okay, go ahead.
Ramona Faith, followed by Anne Marie Daniels.
Okay.
I think that we need to, many of you will probably disagree with me, but I think we really need to start with a basic understanding. I think we need to increase awareness throughout this community and what diversity and equity and inclusion really means and looks like. I love the creation of the culture community, but I don't know if that necessarily the people that we want to maybe increase their awareness and change their perspectives probably would not go to the culture community center, right? So I really think that community-wide training is where we need to start. And the diversity with the schools is great, but I want the previous slide where there's diversity on committees and government councils and all that, and in businesses, because the community-wide training, it goes out to the businesses as well, and the parents as well. It's everyone.
Yeah.
And so I really think that there has to be many things going on at the same time. There's not one or two things, and we're going to do it. If we're talking about it really increasing awareness and providing some education, it needs to be done in a variety of ways.
Absolutely. Different modalities.
Yes.
Yep.
Different modalities.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my thought.
Let me just share something really quickly. I had a conversation earlier today, much earlier, with a completely different client, different area. And this person said, they were talking about something that happened. It was in a corporation, and they said they had harmed a person of color by a comment. And they said, well, that wasn't my intent. I meant it as such. And upon further examination, and conversation, the person just did not get it. And that's where you need the training. And we have not talked about doing any DEI training within Petaluma. So I'm putting a big push for that, because people don't know what they don't know to an extent. There's hate and there's ignorance. Okay. And so if you're a member of the Klan, I'm sorry, if any of you, you're just a horrible human being. That's just hate. If you were raised around all white people who had never been around a Black person or an Asian person, and you make a comment, you should know better. But if you don't know better, how do you know better? It is on you to educate yourself, but how do you know you need to be educated? And that's part of the purpose of DEI training, is increasing awareness.
I agree, and I think it needs to be community-wide DEI training.
Yeah, I heartily agree. Okay, Aaron.
Anne Marie Daniels, followed by Eric Leland.
So how are you going to know? Google, right? It's out there. You know, you can learn. But what I was going to say initially is I have sat on a city sanctioned arts cultural center committee for, in the past for a different city. And that was a 2-year process of what do we do? The building first, the programs first, this and that and this. And so it becomes this large diluted conversation. And so I would encourage us not to go that route, having the experience of sitting on a committee like that, realizing how much money it takes to either buy a building, build a building, what do we do, start the programs, who do we start with? I would encourage us not to do that as our first, as our guiding innovative idea. I think when we talk about what we're recommending and who we're recommending to, which is the city council and that body, what is their power? It's policy, legislation, and zoning rights. So things like the very first meeting, Sadie Martinez recommended doing a legislation similar to the Karen Act that San Francisco put out. That would be something that they could do. Recommending a percentage match for the police department for for housing programs or disparity programs, social economics programs. That's something they can do. So I wanted to just voice that, having been on a committee that Benicia does not have that art center that we talked about. Okay, so that's what I would say. That when we are recommending to the city, I would want us to focus in on policy, focus in on real things like qualified immunity and that sort of thing that we could write legislation for and write the budget for whenever the next budget approval comes for the city.
Fair. Thank you. Okay, how many more?
We have 2. Eric
Okay,
Weaver,
that's it.
followed by Rabbi Ted Feldman.
Rabbi, you're the last one. Okay, go ahead. I think it was Eric.
Yeah. Thank you. Just mine will be really quick. I want to double underscore what Anne-Marie Daniels just said. That was a lot of what I wanted to say. And just one more example, the civilian-led dispatch system with the reporting mechanism for bias incidents. These are also some very pragmatic things that can be done in a relatively simple, straightforward manner from city council. So again, it just sort of stacks on the policy changes that are kind of pragmatic that we can do, not in a 2-year time frame, but much sooner. Thank you.
Thank you. Time bound. Yep. Okay. Rabbi.
Yes, thank you. And I agree with Anne-Marie Daniels too. And but I was thinking of when you put your suggestion out that we have to, while we want big ideas and big things, we also need to be practical of what's possible in our city. Budget limitations, political realities, what changes can be made to push the envelope as far as we can to get somewhere. So I was when you suggested the arts center and the cultural center, we have a community center, and so a recommendation of examining that structure, the programming at our Petaluma Community Center, how Parks and Recreation is handling multicultural. There's a system already in place that we could suggest that they impose on within it a change of policy so that there is more diversity and more sensitivity throughout the city and throughout what we're offering the public. So, and I agree about the diversity training too, but just that there are mechanisms in place that we would want to use without having to recreate a wheel.
Thank you. And and I want to clarify one thing with my suggestion, whatever we do with that or not, is that I don't think of it as an art center. That's very different. Okay, as you can see from my room here, I'm a huge fan of the arts, but that's not what I'm. You can put some art up, but it's because that stimulates, the left. You need to stimulate the left and the right side of the brain for creativity. But I'm talking about a place, call it a clubhouse. Maybe that's a better analogy. Where deep thinking happens and change. It's a place where people come together that care about change and want to make change, and what comes out of there is innovative ideas. Like I said, a think tank. I think that it's something to think about. So what we should do now, because we've had a really good, robust discussion on this, is vote. I think people should Let me think. How many people do we have, Aaron? How many people are in attendance? 26?
Let me count real quick because we've had some latecomers.
Right.
Okay, 24.
Okay. So the cities, I think Ingrid's doing this. She's going to kill me. Ingrid, I know I'm going to get a text. The phone's going to blow up in about 2 seconds. This is my suggestion. What if we multi-vote? What if each person has 3 votes and they can allocate them however they'd like with what's up here? And we can do it quickly. Does that make sense? Can I get some thumbs up, some thumbs down, some Tracy, you're crazy? Okay, I like it. Okay. So Ingrid, text me or say something. Are you okay?
I can track that. I'm set up to tally. So if
Okay.
you go to each person and you give me 3 votes, then I will tally them.
Thank you. Flowers are coming. Okay.
No,
All right.
no flowers needed.
Okay.
And I also have someone watching on backup to help me.
Perfect. Okay. So let's go through roll call. You have 3 votes. You can allocate them however you'd like to what's on this list. And remember, be prepared in your mind to justify how whatever you select is reducing harm, ultimately through increasing trust within the community, the city, and police. So let's start with roll call. You can allocate all 3 to 1, 2 to 1, 3 to whatever you want to do it.
Thank
Aaron, you ready?
Just a reminder to all, please be slow and very clear. This is probably going to take a while, but we want to make sure we count everyone's vote. So the first one we have is Joel Bruner, Duquesne.
Thanks, Aaron. I'd like to choose increased diversity in schools, creation of a multicultural community center, and increased community policing, more involvement in schools, functions, and sports.
Thank you. Next person I have is Liz Chacon. I don't believe she's here. We have Angeles Cruz, who also is out. And then we have Anne-Marie Daniels.
I will vote for, let's see here. I will vote for police and the community review policy for carrying weapons and screening for past misconduct and bias. I'd also like that unqualified immunity to that, so we could have that quick discussion. Then I would, let's see, a civilian-led dispatch system and reporting mechanism for bias incidents. That almost sounds like the same. So I'll just choose civilian-led dispatch system. And then zoning reform for to include more apartments and affordable housing.
Thank you. Next person we have is Claudia Pena.
I'd like to vote for the creation of a multicultural community center, increased diversity in schools, and police and the community review policy for carrying weapons and screening for past misconduct.
Thank you. Next, we have Ramona Faith.
I would like to put 3 votes on community-wide DEI training.
Thank you. So I'm just trying to track that one. Okay. Rabbi Ted Feldman.
Yes, 1 vote for funding for a job, 1 vote for the cultural center, and 1 vote for reporting mechanism for bias incidents.
Thank you. Next, we have Anthony Franklin.
Yes, 1 vote for the creation of a multicultural center, 1 for increased diversity in schools, and then 1 for the police and the community review the policy.
Thank you. Next, we have Joanna Garcia.
1 vote for creation of a multicultural community center, One vote for increased diversity in schools, and one vote for increased community policing.
Thank you. Zaira Garcia.
So I'm going to vote my 3 votes for police and the community review policy for carrying weapons and screening for past misconduct and bias. The reason for that is because we need to explore more things that can keep us safe. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Hey, Nan Hunidi. Don't know if she's ever came back. We have Eric Leland.
Yes. I'm one vote for police and the community review policy for carrying weapons, and 2 votes for civilian-led dispatch system, which I agree is encompassing of reporting mechanisms for bias incidents. So 2 for civilian-led dispatch system. Thank you.
Thank you. Sonia Lowry.
Okay, I have 1 vote for increased diversity in schools, citywide bias training, and then police and the community review policy.
Thank you. Sadie Martinez.
I have 1 vote for increased diversity in the schools, another one for police and community review policy, and actually I'm going to give that one 2 votes.
Thank you. Julia Main. Okay. Mike Miller.
I'm going to apply all 3 of my votes to police and the community review policy for carrying weapons.
Thank you. Joanna Pon.
I'm going to say zoning reform to include more apartments and affordable housing, citywide bias training, and screening for past misconduct and bias.
Thank you. Stefan Perez. Kenyatta Reynolds.
I'm going to vote 1 vote for increased diversity in schools, being that I work at a school and I'm one of like 3 African Americans that work in that district. I'm going to go for police and community review policy for carrying weapons and screening for past misconduct and bias. And I would like to do 1 vote for zoning reform to include more apartments and affordable housing so that BIPOC do not have to move out of Petaluma, and to support Brian Barnacle.
Fabian Romo Macias.
All right. I'd like to place a vote on increased diversity in schools, 1 in the creation of culture community, and 1 in the screening for past misconduct for police and community.
Thank you. Faith Ross.
I would like to have 1 on increased diversity in our schools. I'd like to add city government and police department to that. I'm not sure why those things aren't there. Then creation of a multicultural center, and then police and the community review policy for carrying weapons and screening for past misconduct bias.
Thank you. Mark Scott.
I'd like to have 1 for creation of a cultural center, 1 for increased diversity in schools, and 1 vote for increased community policing in schools and involvement.
Thank you. Joe Sturtevant. Risa Tinsley Green.
I'd like to put 2 votes on civilian-led dispatch system and 1 vote on zoning reform.
Thank you. Pedro Toledo.
Thank you. So I'd like 3 votes on increased diversity in schools and city government, as was earlier stated. Thank you.
Catherine Wells.
I would like to put 2 of my votes for the community-wide bias training. And I'd like to echo what has been said about increased diversity in schools. Can we add some of the stuff that was there before, which is government bodies and committees, et cetera? I don't know if that will mess things up, but it was there previously. I wonder if we could include it there.
That's a question.
Yeah, I just want to clarify if that's okay if we add that there.
Well, I don't think it is, because then people who've already voted don't have the opportunity to vote on that. So,
Okay.
but Catherine, there is a way to bring it back in under whatever topic we pick. Trust me. Okay.
Thank you.
Hold me accountable on that.
So Catherine, would that be still your last vote?
Sorry, my apologies. Yes. So citywide, community-wide bias training and diversity. Yes. Thank you.
Just to be clear, I have 2 votes for citywide bias training and 1 for increased diversity in school. Cool. Thank you. Aaron Wilkins.
1 vote increased diversity in schools. 1 vote police in the community. 1 vote reporting mechanism for bias incidents.
Thank you. And we have Lou Zire.
So I want to do 1 for creating a community cultural center, 1 for citywide bias training, and 1 for, so I'm going to say restorative justice, because that really has dropped out of the conversation. And I think in terms of changing how people interact with each other, individuals, that's key. So I'm going to put 1 there.
Thank you. And just give Ingrid a minute to tally up all our votes.
Okay. So we will. How much time do you think? They probably need about 5 minutes. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that a yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can play nice music. We can chat. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about during this session? Anything you want to bring up?
Is it okay if I just mention that the restorative justice circles, actually that exists already, so perhaps that can go under the cultural center, because that does exist through PPS, Petaluma People Services Center, and some restorative justice programs do exist through the police department, so those exist. I just wanted to point that out in case people didn't realize that Petaluma People Services Center does provide some of that.
Okay, I'm just making a note so that we keep that in mind, as we go forward. Okay.
And can I just also say, like, restorative justice, I feel like we could put that into the policy under police in the community as well. Like, it doesn't have to be tied to this cultural center.
Yeah, I mean, that can go anywhere, right? Because it impacts the community, city, and the police department, right? Anne Marie, is that accurate?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that Ken has said that in the past, that the police does have restorative justice for, I think, minors.
Right. Thank you.
Good point, Lou. That is important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'll just say, so I'm aware of the programs that people mentioned. So I'm aware that there is some going on, but I don't think it's going on at the scale that's really would affect safety in the community, like how community members interact with each other, or when there's harm done around that happens around an interaction. Is there a community process that brings those people together to resolve that harm with using restorative practices? I don't think that exists.
Thank you. Anybody else have any thoughts while they're tallying?
We have the final tally, so Ingrid will be typing in the tally into the PowerPoint.
Okay, but thank you. Somebody was going to say something. I'm not sure who that was.
Yeah, it was me, Zaira.
Okay.
I just want to also be mindful of public comment, because I do want to give public comment enough time to comment whatever it is that they need to comment. So if we need to also vote for that extra sitting in the meeting, I think we should also.
Okay, let us get through this, and then I promise we'll come back to that. Okay, you know, because I don't know how you all do these long meetings on Zoom. You all are hardy. I cannot wait until we can get back in person, because at least you can get up and move around, and you guys would actually be doing, I keep doing that. You all would actually be doing multi-voting. You know, I would have you up with dots, you know, and then we could tally. It's much more interesting. But alas, we are stuck in pandemic or post-pandemic or almost post-pandemic world, whatever it is. We have totals yet? Are we finished, or she's still typing? She's still typing.
Almost there.
Okay.
I'll read them out. Let me just type it so everyone can see it.
You know, one of the things I'm wondering is, are you all interested in like a list of suggested books, you know, in the DEI space? Yeah? Okay. Hold on while she's typing. I'll be right back. I'm gonna show you something.
You want me to read back the results?
Ingrid, let's wait till Tracy gets back.
Yeah. Can you see my screen with the numbers?
Yes.
Okay. Tracy, do you want me to read out now?
Are we finished?
We are finished.
Okay. So it looks like number 1 is police and the community review policy for carrying weapons and screening for past misconduct bias. Number 2 is increased diversity in schools, administration, credential staff. And it looks like 3 is creation of a cultural community center. Is that right? Do I have it looks like I'm reading that right.
Yep.
Okay. So what I suggest that we do is we will, let me ask the group something. What we can do is go with the top, but I never like to do just one. I think we can do more than that. I'm wondering if we can go with the top, which is police, the number 1, police and the community. Number 2 is increased diversity in schools. And number 3 is creation of a cultural community center. Not focused just on arts, but, you know, more of a think tank type thing. So what if we hold those 3 under, you know, and then I can send out, like we did before, and 3 may be a lot, but that could, you know, if we could flesh out those 3 over the next 2 or 3 meetings, that would be a lot. You know, if we had specific recommendations under those 3, I would think that the work of this committee, you know, went somewhere. What do you all think about that? Do you want to work with 3, or do you want to just pick 1 or 2?
Joel, you have your hand raised?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to, it's something different. I just want to see if we could add multi in front of cultural community center to make it multicultural community center.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that was just a misstep on my part. Thank you. So what do you think? Do you want to work with the top 3 as we complete our work?
To me, that sounds very ambitious, and I think we could do it.
I have confidence in you. Others?
So can we include the restorative justice bucket in with the multicultural?
Sure. Is that okay? I think that makes sense. Is that okay? Yes or no? I need some thumbs. I can't see anything other than thumbs. Okay. Yeah. Well, how about this? Is anybody really opposed to that? I can't see everybody. Aaron, can you?
If anyone's really opposed to it, can you please raise your physical hand up so we can just see?
Anne Marie.
Anne Marie. Okay.
I'm raising my hand not to say that I'm completely opposed to this. Because I think that we voted, and these are the top three. I would just want to suggest that we try to prioritize and tackle them one at a time. And if we have time to get to all three within the remaining 3 meetings, I think that's logical. And I agree with Claudia that restorative justice could be under the creation multicultural center, but it, like I said earlier, it could also be under policy, and I want to give restorative justice a priority along with that first choice. So I would like to include restorative justice within the policing and police in the community, which we could tackle first and then go through 1, 2, 3. I think we have 3 meetings left, so that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think you make a really good point. Is everybody okay with that? Let's, if we add it to the top one, if we add restorative justice, because then we're talking about restorative justice specifically around the police. They're already, I think Chief Savano said they're already doing something along those lines, but it could also then be attached to the multicultural center, right? So that you have both discussion. Okay, Ingrid, if we could attach it, add RJ to the one on the bottom, and then also on the creation of a multicultural center. And I don't think what about with the schools? Well, it does. It's very appropriate in schools. Let's add it there too. Is that okay? So we'll have an RJ lens on all of these. Okay. So we'll add it to that and to the schools piece. Thank you. All right.
I would go back to like reducing harm.
Pardon? Say it again.
I would go back to reducing harm, which was the larger goal. So
right, and that absolutely does that. No, that's great, because that's a very useful tool. Okay. All right. So what I am suggesting is that I will prepare an assignment for you all, and that will be very similar to the last time. We'll send it out as homework, and we'll give you the umbrella. Remember, you're trying to reduce harm by increasing trust, and let's start with police in the community review policy for carrying weapons and screening for past misconduct, bias, and restorative justice. And I'm going to ask you guys are going to make me do another data. I got to stop this. You all are going to make me do another data sort, but I really think it's really great when you send all these ideas in, right? Because we can see where they coalesce together and where are the outliers and whatnot. So are you okay with that? I will ask each of you to come up with 3 innovative ideas under that bucket. And this time I'm going to ask you to do it in a way that is that follows the SMART goals model, which I'll send out. It's really easy if you just use the form. So is that okay? Anybody want to throw a rock at me for making this suggestion? Is that okay? All right, good. Okay, now
Tracy, we do have 3 committee members with their hands raised, though.
Okay, go ahead.
We have Rabbi Ted Feldman, followed by Faith Ross and Sonia Lowry.
Okay.
So my question is, I thought our recommendations are what city council can do.
Right.
The increased diversity in schools is totally out of the realm of the city council. The schools are run by separate districts, separate empowerment, separate taxation. So how is this committee going to be making a recommendation to city council about increasing diversity in the schools?
I put that to the group.
Can I just feel this really quick? Because as far as like the creation of this committee, there's school entities involved in this, and it has always been clear that the schools are not under the city council purview, but the city council has said that they would want to work with the school districts. That's why there's representatives from the school districts. So hopefully we would be able to like give collaborative suggestions.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
I could not have scripted that better, Anne Marie. Flowers are coming to you too. Okay.
I'll take them.
Next.
Faith Ross.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So we've got these 3 things. My question or my comment is, if we took one of those, each one of our next meetings, And perhaps we could expand on them in some way and really flesh them out, like the increased diversity in schools. But we don't want to just increase diversity in schools. We want it in the city government. We want it in the police department. We really want it everywhere. So when we start talking about that, are we going to be able to look at that and say, yeah, we need to do this? And maybe that's going to be a part of our 3 ideas that I don't know how you want to do that, Tracy. But the same thing for both of these, the creation of a multicultural community center. What does that look like? How, we may have some thoughts about that and what would be in there. The police and the community review policy for carrying weapons and screening. That's the same thing. There might be some other things that we want to add with that. So that would be our total recommendation, since we're going to be doing 3 recommendations to the city.
If we get to 3, that's the goal. I think we can. To your point, Faith, if we do 1 for each of the next 3 meetings, but we have to be very focused. So the homework before each meeting will be for the specific area we're studying, we'll be discussing the next time. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense to me.
Okay.
And can I just recommend something else while we're talking about this for a second? If we're going to be doing homework, if we get that homework in time, we could turn that around to you, and then that work could be put into some kind of format or something, so we can look at it at the next meeting and not spend a whole lot of time and then go on to our next one.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we'll do. Thank you. That's what I was thinking. You flowers too. Okay, next.
Lou Zwire.
Yeah, so I think if I'm going to come up with recommendations around police policy for carrying weapons and screening for past misconduct and bias and restorative justice, it'd be great to have information from the department about what their current policies are and what the current restorative justice programs are. So it'd be great to have that information to review and think about in terms of formulating my whatever thoughts I might have about what we might do differently.
Flowers to you, because my next question was going to be to the chief. Is it possible when we send out the homework for you also to send out some background on what the police department, what the PD is doing in these areas now?
Yes, of course.
Okay, perfect. Okay. And you know what? And let's have that be our modus operandi going forward. So when we get to the schools piece, I would ask those that are from the education sector if they have any information, on what's being done, with RJ in the schools or, whatnot, whatever these, whatever topic that they can, add information to share it with the group. Is that fair? Okay. All right. Are we okay, Aaron, now?
2 more speakers. We have Pedro Toledo, followed by Zaira.
Okay. And Zaira, you're going to bring it home. So Pedro, go first. Okay.
In terms of increased diversity in school, I think schools, that's obviously an important area. But I think I think we've been focused also on diversity in city government and in the community. And so broadening that definition, I think makes sense. And that's what I would have supported. Otherwise, I probably would have supported the police and the community instead with all 3. But I'm just throwing that out there in terms of diversity across the whole.
Okay.
More than just schools.
Okay. Thank you.
So I don't think I'm going to bring this home because I'm stuck on third base. It's just because, again, this is more of a clarification. Reallocating funds, is that going to go into the police and the community as well as the civilian oversight? Like, what's going on with that? Like, I thought it's just a little confusing, kind of like how Pedro voted for something that he thought, and I think I'm just looking for transparency purposes as well, and for also our audiences to kind of be aware of what this process looks like. And so,
okay,
because I thought that we had agreed for the civilian oversight as well.
Well, these are what people voted on. So what am I missing then?
Is is that something that, because I'm understanding that, because I also want some other things that would fall under police and the community. So when we do our homework, we would say reallocating the budget would be part of that homework. As
Right.
far as, more specific underneath these basic topics.
Exactly. Thank you, Anne Marie. Always, yes, what she said.
So the challenge is the language in there that for the police and the community review policy for carrying weapons and screening for past misconduct and bias. That in of itself that's a vessel right there. Now, if we start adding the other elements to it, now we're looking at broader. We're broadening the topic, I guess, right? I'm thinking out loud here.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I thought you had said yes to when Faith said that we would be expanding on these ideas. So
I'm thinking, I'm listening to you. I'm just thinking.
Yeah.
Here.
Well, and at this point, I will go ahead and try to bring it home and make a motion that we extend the meeting for public comment.
Agreed. Yeah, just because I know civilian oversight was a separate topic, and then tonight's topic is community engagement, right? So if there's going to be civilian oversight topic about, one meeting should be about that, but now we're going to have two meetings for two different topics. So I think it's just a little confusing at this point.
What? I think you guys are raising a really good point. This is an organic process, right? Because it depends on how far we get. But I think what I'm hearing is that what we should do is expand that bucket, the police bucket, to include what you all just talked. If you want to add those things in under police policies, that we discuss the next time, because I don't think that we are going to be able to do a whole separate thing on civilian oversight of the police. We just don't have the time to do that, because it's not just about the police. We need to talk about schools, and we need to talk about the community. So if the group is okay, I would say if those of you who want to add that in, those anything that relates to the police in, when you give your suggestions, please do so. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that sounds fair, just because I don't want to be disingenuous to what we voted on 2 meetings ago, which was civilian oversight, and then all of a sudden it came down to these elements. So I'm just like, well, kind of a slick move in a way, but it's all good. But I think.
Wait, time out. Did you just accuse me of doing a slick move?
Not an excuse. It's just a feeling. It's just the feeling of we voted on something.
Wait. I have no skin in this game. Let me be clear. If you all don't think I have the integrity, to be direct with you, we have a problem. I have no skin in trying to move anything in or out of here. My goal is just to get a very diverse group to coalesce. If that were my goal, if my goal were to control this, then I would say, oh, no, we can't put civilian oversight in. I'm saying add it in. Give me my credit.
I give you your credit. I just want to make sure just that we're being transparent and just clear. It's just, there's a lot of moving pieces. We talked about 2 meetings ago, and I just wanted to be clear that that we can put that under the police and the community review.
So Ingrid, can you add, and Zyra, and who was it? Anne Marie, help me here. Can we add, please, civilian oversight? What was the other one we want to add? Was it what was it?
Yeah.
Reallocation of the budget, right?
Reallocating funds.
See, I'm listening. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the 6-week session, one of the recommendations could be that we suggest the city create a committee for civilian oversight.
Suggest it. When you get your this would be the time to suggest it on this homework round, right? So I can include it in the sort. Okay.
Right. While I'm unmuted, Tracy, can we move to public comment? Can I make a motion?
Yeah. How much time do you all want to add? It's already 10 minutes to 9.
So could we add 30 minutes, and then we would have a 40-minute public comment, as we had said in the beginning. It's a suggestion.
Yeah.
If there's like a first to motion that, I agree with that, with what Anne Marie suggested.
So I motion to add 30 minutes to the meeting for public comment.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, and let's take a vote. Aaron?
Thank you. Joel Bruner Duquesne.
Aye.
Liz Chacon. Anelis Cruz. Anne Marie Daniels.
Aye.
Claudia de la Pena.
Aye.
Ramona Faith.
Aye, but I have to sign off at 9. I'm sorry.
Rabbi Ted Feldman.
Aye.
Anthony Franklin.
Aye.
Joanna Garcia.
Aye.
Zaire Garcia.
Aye.
Hanan Hunadi. Eric Leland.
Aye.
Tanya Lowry.
Aye, thank you.
Sadie Martinez.
Aye.
Julia Main. Mike Miller.
Aye.
Joanna Pon.
Aye.
Stefan Perez. Kenyana Reynolds.
Aye.
Fabian Romo Macias.
Aye.
Faith Ross.
Aye, I may be leaving early also.
Mark Scott.
Aye.
Joe Sturdivant. Risa Tinsley Green.
Aye.
Pedro Toledo.
Aye.
Catherine Wells.
Aye.
Aaron Wilkins.
Aye.
And Lou Zweier.
Aye.
So we have 22 affirmative votes with 6 abstaining as they're absent.
Okay. So
Tracy,
let's-
I would like to acknowledge though that Ramona and Eric both had their hands raised before the vote took place.
Okay, Ramona? No, she's saying no. Eric?
I'm all good, thank you.
Okay. Thanks. So, Mr. Zavala?
I can open public comment. Thank you. So at this time, we are opening up public comment. Those interested in speaking can raise their virtual hands. We will not tolerate violence or obscenity. At this time, the first speaker that we have is Aaron Cholomiski. Give me 1 second to bring a clock up. It's 3 minutes for general public comment. The first speaker is Aaron. I'll now unmute you. You can unmute yourself and begin.
Hi, Aaron Chmielewski, Paloma Resident. I'll just repeat what I had to say at the beginning in Q&A that no one else can see except for you guys. That in order for the AHCAC members to continue in the role before them and feel safe and effective in that role, the issue of their comfort and safety needs to be addressed immediately in a way that meets all their needs. These spaces need full transparency, integrity, and accountability in order to be able to do authentic and meaningful work. And this is a question that was posed prior to this, would like to know how you're making this safe space in light of recent events. I also want to lift up, in this situation, the response to people declaring not feeling safe felt very dismissive, and that white supremacy in all of its forms felt protected. Also, like I said before, a safe space cannot be declared. Like, we have to we have to make sure that we are listening completely to our BIPOC members who are saying that they don't feel safe. And I can understand the frustration of having to like talk about this topic and the parallel, that feeling that there's no use in voting for something that will not have any power. But I also don't want to uphold the current system that just dismisses people's worries and trying to pass over it just so we can get back to work. Because we can send a statement to the city that we don't accept the status quo by executing your censure power. And in a lot of ways, this work is so much bigger than one single topic, obviously. So it was very hard to pinpoint certain aspects to really dissect and come back to, which really just leads us back to a bigger issue that there's only 6 sessions and you are cramming things down everybody's throat because there's so little time and you have to speed through all these things. And it's just very difficult to have a truly fluid conversation and research everything and feel successful in the choices and recommendations you're giving. But again, I do appreciate that everybody is taking so much of their time to do this and sit here and talk through this. And thank you to all the city staff that are on here as well. Thank you, Tracy, and have a good night.
Thank you. The next speaker that we have is Paloma. I will now allow you to speak. You can unmute yourself and begin.
Thank you, Aaron. And also thank you to the previous Aaron who left a comment. So I just want to hop in and say, first off, happy Pride Month to all my LGBT family. Pride was a riot against police brutality. So I would like us to kind of keep that in mind as we're celebrating this year, that, like Pride is built off of this institution of police brutality, and what you're doing now is really important, not only to our people of color, but to the LGBT community. So thank you so much for this work that you're doing. I want to echo a few things that were brought up by a lot of the community members. So I really want to start by saying that I think that all bias screening should happen by a third party institution. I don't think that it should be done by the police themselves, because let's just assume that there's a bad apple in there doing that screening. You're only going to get people who are following that same ideal. So you really need to have somebody who's completely third party, not involved with police at all, and who has no skin in the game in order to make sure that it is truly unbiased. So I would say that having that be completely outside of the city, city policing would be really important. I also think that I really like what people had to say about police not being armed at all times. I mean, this sort of echoes on the comment that I left at the last meeting, where it's just odd that police say they can't show up to events without weapons when people are showing up themselves without weapons and are assuming their own safety. So I highly recommend that be something that really gets looked at. Is there a way to have reduced police that are armed, especially when involved in non-urgent or non-life-threatening situations? I think that there should be an additional force. I really appreciate the CAHOOTS model. I think there should be an additional force that is not armed for handling non-urgent issues. So I really want to push that forward. I also want to echo that I really think that the city council should make this not just an ad hoc committee, but an ongoing committee, because there's so much to unpack here. Y'all are doing a great job in getting to everything in the limited time that you have, but I really want to see you have the time to actually flesh out these discussions and really dig deep into them. Plus, building trust with the police. I appreciate Ken Savano being here, but I really think that a continuing committee would allow you to have that trust built, so that way there's a true relationship between this committee and the police ongoing. So I believe that should be part of the recommendation to City Council, that this be an ongoing committee with power behind it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next speaker that we have is Patrick Mundy. I will now allow you to speak. You can unmute yourself and begin.
Thanks very much, and thanks to the committee for existing. Aaron and Paloma were very eloquent on some topics that I was going to also speak upon, so I'll just touch on them briefly. First of all, I think this committee should strongly recommend to the City Council that it be chartered as an ongoing entity. There is way too much to unpack here in 6 meetings, and there are a lot of really great minds and hearts present, and this should be an ongoing thing. Yes, it's a lot of work, but democracy is hard work. So I strongly recommend that you push for continuity, not just 3 more meetings. Secondly, about safe spaces, those of us who are white and especially male are not in a position to tell our BIPOC community members whether they should feel safe or not. We have to listen to them just as we need in this time to trust women when they're telling us that they're being assaulted or whatever. So I really want to echo what Aaron said about safe space. I think that needs to be taken to heart and thought over a little bit more. Civilian oversight of the police is non-negotiable for me as a community member. Nothing particular against our police force or you, Chief Sabano. It's just an inherent principle that any agency that is chartered by a community to enforce that community's laws and is empowered to use weapons and force up to and including deadly force has to submit to civilian oversight. Otherwise, it's not really legitimate. You know, you're granted an awesome power, and the responsibility that comes along with that is to subject yourself to proper civilian oversight. So we need to lead the way for the whole country in that, and we have an opportunity to do so. Rabbi Feldman made a comment that that you might not be chartered to make recommendations to school districts or the PCS. But this is an ad hoc committee, and I think you should feel empowered to make recommendations to any agencies or entities in and around Petaluma. It may not carry any force, but you're a group of thinking and well-respected people, and I think you should feel very comfortable making recommendations. Maybe they'll get published in the Argus Courier, and maybe they will create movement and outcome. So don't hold back just because the City Council chartered you. Make use of your voice. And then finally, I wanted to address the bias assessment. And again, I've nothing against Chief Savano. I have a great deal of respect for the work you do. But again, as a privileged white male, if you want to build trust in the community, then I think you have to be willing to take some risks. And one of those risks is to have that bias assessment be conducted by an external agency, not attached to any, not beholden to any law enforcement, and preferably, you know, constituted but made up of BIPOC folks, and to be willing to take some actions if that bias assessment produces some results. That would be a great way to build trust. Thank you all for your hard work on this.
Thank you. The next speaker that we have is a call-in number. I will now allow you to speak. You can unmute yourself and begin, and please announce yourself.
Hi, this is Jim Duffy. Effective civilian oversight by itself will not fix race-community police relations in Petaluma. However, race-community police relations in Petaluma will not get substantially better without the establishment of effective civilian oversight. This committee is much too large, has a charge that is far too broad, and meets too seldom to create a viable recommendation for effective civilian oversight. Last month, I provided some resources to this committee on effective civilian oversight. I wonder how many of you have even viewed the NACOL Civilian Oversight 101 video that was provided. At your next meeting, the committee should recommend to the City Council that they appoint a different committee whose sole focus is to research and recommend to the City Council the appropriate form and structure for a civilian oversight entity to serve the needs of the Petaluma community. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker that I have is Susan Kurtz. I'll now allow you to speak. You can unmute yourself and begin.
Thank you, and good evening. I'll try to stay within 2 minutes because I know your time, all of you have such full lives, and I have really enjoyed attending your meetings. And I wanted to comment tonight, first to support what both Aaron and Paloma said so eloquently. I 100% support the comments that they made. I wonder if you could go ahead and ask the city council to extend your 6 meetings to perhaps 8 or 9, so that you identify what your group dynamic is, and you know that you probably could use at least 2 or 3 more meetings to get through this phase of what you are working on. And I appreciated Ms. Garcia's comment later in the meeting, because I too was a little confused about the 2 areas, community engagement and civilian oversight for policing, and how that was kind of evolving this evening. And I really appreciated the clarification for that. And so I think the 2 areas that you have, the general community engagement, reveals some really good recommendations tonight. I also feel that the community safety element is extremely important, civilian oversight, and the excellent suggestions about a civilian dispatch source, and reallocating funds, and having the policies of the police department available to you to review before you delve into this, so you can make practical and realistic recommendations. All of that is very important, along with, excuse me, along with the oversight in general for safety that we all want to see for the community, and particularly for the BIPOC community and the LGBTQI plus community. So I just want to thank you so much for all of the time that you're giving to this, and your thoughtful process, and speaking up. I think it's just really important. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker that we have is John Hanania. I'll now allow you to speak. You can unmute yourself and begin.
Good evening. First of all, I would like to thank Zaira for her comment. I think she was right on. I also agree with the first 2 speakers. I believe it's Erin Paloma and Susan Kirks, who just spoke. One of the most important things that you should be looking at, and I do believe very strongly, you cannot have a police department to police a community when they cannot police themselves. Petaluma Police Department, they have good police officers who wanted to serve the community, but you have a lot of bad apples in there, which is Ken will never admit it. Ken talks about bias and screening. Well, I'll remind something to Ken Savano. On the end of his term as a traffic sergeant, he walked into Petaluma Shoe Repair, where I was sitting in the office. He did not see me. And he was bragging about one officer who had more complaints about him than anybody you can ever think of. But he was bragging how good he is. And I don't know how many of you do know the definition of Hitler Gustavus. He was worse than Hitler Gustavus. And he was total hypocrite, okay? But yet Ken Savano was bragging about him. A second, Deputy Chief Miller. I asked him direct question. He didn't give me a truthful answer. And when I did public record request, the response I got, we don't have a record for that, which is not true. I believe he wasn't truthful, and I think the police department need to be transparent. And one of the most important thing with the whole thing with that you guys doing, it was all about oversight committee. So let's not get sidetracked. It's very, very important to stay on track. The oversight committee, it's very, very important, okay? Talk about safety. If you ask the public, I don't think a lot of public feels safe to contact the Petaluma Police. Talking about restorative justice, when someone is cited for anything in Petaluma, there's always overcharge, and it goes to the DA and they overcharge to use it for leverage to plea bargain with the person, you know, oh, well, if you do this, we'll just give you this many days, and instead of, you know, going to trial and facing years. So there's no such a thing as restorative justice. You want to talk about restorative justice, contact Marin County Probation Department and find out about Cindy Iola, who was recruited from Canada all the way down here to hold the program Restorative Justice. Thank you very much for your time and your hard work. Good night.
Thank you. The next speaker that we have is Chris, GRN. I'll now allow you to speak. You can unmute yourself and begin.
Hello, committee members. Thank you for your hard work. I admire the work that you're doing. My comment is for Tracy. My name is Christopher Neugebauer. I'm 32. I'm white, but I'm an immigrant from the Australian state of Tasmania. When I was 3 months old in Tasmania, police violently arrested gay men who were handing out literature at a street market, literature demanding fair treatment under the law. Homosexuality was decriminalized there when I was 9, and I discovered I was queer when I was 15. Growing up queer in the shadow of those arrests meant growing up around people whose formative understanding of gay people was that it was an identity that justified being beaten by police. Trust was hard to come by. The promise of safety was often a false promise, rewarded with trauma or humiliation. I moved to Petaluma 4 years ago, and here I'm just a white man. The police don't tend to arrest white queer men here. But I can see that the actions of the police and of this city make people of color feel unsafe and make them feel targeted. When I left Australia, there still hadn't been a real effort to acknowledge the harm that police caused to the queer community when I was growing up. So seeing the city I moved to make a real effort to address that fear, that distrust, that feeling of unsafety that people felt targeted by police rightfully have, I was hopeful. And I can't begin to imagine the fear and the distrust that people of color feel towards police, towards authority here. I know it's more than I've ever felt. So when I hear the facilitator of this committee declare that this is a safe place, when I read the mayor and the members of city council declare that this is a safe space, I say in response, safety is not declared. Safety is earned. Trust is not declared. Trust is earned. No space is safe until the people you have invited into it tell you that it's safe. And yet you came into this meeting and the first thing that you said to the committee members was that this is a safe space, as if that were a fact. Many of the members of this committee are being amazingly brave just by being here. They're appearing in public with their names and faces visible. And when this meeting finishes, they have to go out into the real world where people, including those who may target them, know what they've said in this committee. This committee is part of the real world, and the safety of the people in this committee is only as much as the safety that this community and the people in authority in this city can afford them. When you call this place safe, rather than acknowledging the real risk this committee faces just by being here, you are minimizing their bravery and the valuable work they are doing in spite of this risk. When you show up to the next meeting, when you next write in public about the space you're fostering, I want you to think about what you've done to make this space safe for the people in the committee. I want you to show what you've done to make it safe.
Chris, my apologies, but your time has expired. The next speaker that we have is Sarah. The Sarah listed as they/them. I will now allow you to speak. You can mute yourself and begin.
Yes, hello. A lot of really great comments tonight. I want to echo just about all of what was said. I can't really think of anything I disagreed with. I want to especially echo that civilian oversight being non-negotiable, and the idea of having this be an ongoing committee. And I think that part of what that should look like is something more like the Commission on Human Rights up at the county, where it is community led as well. And to Tracy Webb, this is not an accusation or anything like that. This doesn't mean that you are doing anything less than the most well-intentioned. But I do want to name that you are being paid by the city, and that doesn't necessarily, indicate a conflict of interest. But I do think that that is at least somewhat skin in the game. So I just want to name that. Tonight has been really disappointing to keep hearing folks talking about increasing trust between the community, the city, and the police. I would want to really think through what part of the community that is being addressed toward, since there are people in the community, like the person who spoke before me, who have experienced targeting by police, or targeting or just like to have an association with police and danger, who aren't going to trust police at any point, no matter how many potlucks get put on. Folks who have been targeted, there's the folks in the immigrant community who are never going to trust police. There are people who, have been targeted by police since they were children, who are never going to trust police. And that's not all of them, but I think operating with a goal of trust is going to really limit the subset of the community that you're able to reach or focus on. I think a better framework to operate on is from the question of what it takes for everyone in the community to actually be and actually feel safe. Because it is like both of those are really important, and it should actually be like a real thing. And just like, how are we going to protect people from police? It's also really kind of upsetting to see a police officer like having his voice prioritized in this meeting. That's just not great. All cops are bad. Good night.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker that we have is Josh Simmons. I'll now allow you to speak. You can unmute yourself and begin.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, city staff, and most importantly, thank you to committee members. There's not a lot that I can add that hasn't already been said. I will say only that I want to underscore the need for an ongoing committee, a standing committee on this work, because 6 meetings is clearly just not going to be enough. I want to thank the committee members who showed up and spoke their minds, even knowing that they are targets, even knowing that they are not safe as much as we might like to think they are. I think it's really a shame that city council and city staff did not swiftly condemn the white supremacy, therefore leaving this committee to spend so much time spinning its wheels trying to address something, ultimately to not even pass agendize a resolution. What a shame. I hope that we can all be unequivocal in condemning white supremacy, racism, all forms of bigotry, and recognize that when we let a dark joke, quote unquote, pass, when we laugh it off, when we let it slide, we're only inviting escalation. We are only inviting escalation, and people's safety is at risk. Thank you, committee members. Keep up the good work. And my God, can we please just condemn white supremacy already? How hard is it?
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker that we have is Michael Titoni. I will now allow you to speak. You can unmute yourself and begin.
Hello. So I I want to reiterate what a lot of people have said about Stefan Perez and the city's inability to, not only call out white supremacy, which is really basic, not only call out white nationalism, which is just, it's fundamental. It's for anybody that wants to seriously earn trust on police accountability issues. It's fundamental. But to continue allowing Stefan Perez to serve on this board, I think that for someone who has made jokes about Nazis being censored on social media, it's or maybe not a joke. That's the unfortunate thing about a lot of white supremacists online is it's kind of covered up under this, possibly a joke, possibly not a joke thing. And we know that it's not a joke in many communities. There's no, and I just want to say that I think that, the city, unfortunately, these values are reflective of the city now. This is someone who serves on your board, and the city has to eat that. This person's values are now part of the values that compromise the governing aspect of this city. This committee is a public. It's an actual official organization. It's not a safe space. It was never a safe space. It was never going to be a safe space. But the fact that this person is allowed to continue serving on the board makes it so much less of a safe space, where not even the safety of the members who have spoken out multiple times about their safety is considered. I want to reiterate, I want to, highlight the fact that, a lot of this, was kind of put under wow, there's a lot to say. A lot of this discussion was put under the category of increasing trust of the police. And I'd like to warn you against that, because it's what I saw a lot happening in Santa Rosa, the idea that it's this board's job to increase trust of the police department. It's absolutely not the job. Trust is something that's earned, and keeping the community safe should be the primary goal. Putting the trust as the goal is a bad motive, and it prioritizes the needs of the city over the needs of the population. And I'd like to say that, key to all this is defunding the police, refunding the people. I think it says a lot that Ken Savano speaks out about this being a progressive police department in the same sentence that he says we need more funding. That says a lot.
Sorry, Michael, but your time has expired. The next speaker that we have is Ellen O. I'll now allow you to speak. You're going to mute yourself and begin.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay, so I know there's so much to comment on. First, I also want to thank all the community members for speaking their minds. So important. Second, I emailed a comment about First Amendment rights, and I encourage everybody on this committee, and actually everybody in the community, to read it. Third, I haven't heard about any restorative justice programs here in Petaluma, and that fact I'm hearing about it as part of this conversation without knowing about it is curious to me, and I would love to hear more. Fourth, I so echo everyone who was calling for police to show up to the community without their weapons. When they do, it's antithetical to community trust. Fifth, and lastly, thank you. I'm not 100% positive, but according to the California League of Cities, it seems like ad hoc committees are not subject to the Brown Act. It would be great to figure out before the next meeting the rules governing this committee. And I'm very happy to do more research, talk to anybody who I need to figure out what's going on around that, because I don't want there to be assumptions that are not true. Thank you all again so much for all you're doing, and I yield my time.
Thank you. Next speaker that we have is Sarah. I will now allow you to speak. You can unmute yourself and begin.
Hola, buenas noches. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you all for the work that you're doing. Muchísimas gracias por todo el trabajo que están haciendo. Es muy importante que todo el mundo se pueda oír estas cosas. That they can hear it in Spanish, they can hear it in Mandarin, that they can hear it in any language that they need, including ASL or having any sort of interpretation. Accessibility is key. I want to echo and say thank you to Aaron, Paloma, Patrick, and deep thanks to Chris for sharing his story and the experience that he has. All of it speaks to the fact that this committee and our community and the city council can only move, and the police department can only move at the speed of trust. And trust is built by listening. Our students in Petaluma have spoken up in certain ways, saying that they are not being listened to, that the words that they say when they speak up about discrimination, about harassment, about feeling safe in the community is not being listened to and is not being respected and followed up with. It is beginning to now, thankfully, to this the people who are on the boards now and who are doing that, but historically have not been. This also seems to be mirrored given the experiences of late with Mr. Perez in this community. Jokes about Nazis are not funny. They are not funny here, and they are not funny in schools. There was an episode that happened a few years back in one of our high schools where one student was harassing another student by using the Nazi salute. When that student finally spoke up, not much was done. So what we are seeing here is a mirror of that experience. Not much is being done. Even if that is the only transgression that you can see that is live and has any sort of quote unquote proof, nothing is being done here to that end. Every story, every time someone speaks up, it must, about their safety, it must be followed up with investigation, independent investigation, and that is very important. We must lead by example. The city council must lead by example in order to be able to have a space where these members can feel brave enough to share their stories and share their thoughts. Secondly, I think that this should be a long-term thing, and all diversity needs to be supported by mental and emotional health, as well as affinity groups and support services. Thank you so much for all of your work. You do so much and are so brave, and I am in awe and inspired by each and every one of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker that we have is Ben Peters. I'll now allow you to speak. You can unmute yourself and begin.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to talk a little bit about the topic of trust and maybe coming at it from a perspective of privilege. And so I think we can all agree that the oil industry is the bloodiest and exploits our most vulnerable communities. And we should do everything within our power to reduce the power of that institution and that criminal organization. And so the place to start is just getting electric vehicles. And so a couple years ago, when the police department was about to get 2 new parking meter vehicles, which is about one of the best uses for electric vehicles that you can get, switch off the bloody gas onto the clean electricity. And there was some misstatements, mistruths said about why those electric vehicles wouldn't work. The bottom line is that the police chief made a promise that night. He said, "I promise the next vehicle we buy is going to be electric." Now, when it came the time to honor that promise, they had a nice plug-in electric vehicle that they bought. And my question is, to this day, has that vehicle ever ran on electricity? Because if that answer is no, then that means that the police chief hasn't met his promise. And if he can't keep a simple promise, like honoring his commitment to buy an electric vehicle, I certainly don't know how he can have this level of trust in the community that we so desperately need. Now, I recognize this isn't honoring a lot of the hurt and pain in our community, and so I do want to elevate that. But I just want to remind people of this perspective, because after many months of asking, we finally found out how much money they're spending on gasoline, and it's hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And so when we talk about reallocating the budget, that's a very easy place to start. Yet because of egos or lack of understanding or whatever reason, there's still a stubborn commitment to maintain these bloody vehicles. And so we really need to, as a community, start with the dollars. And that's why I invite anyone interested. There's another space on the Measure U Oversight Committee that deals with the budget. And I think we need a member of our community here tonight to join that. So
Thank you. Sorry, but your time has expired. Tracy, at this point, we do not have other public commenters, but I would like to invite Eric Danley, who had a comment.
Perfect.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Tracy, and committee members of the public. I just wanted to briefly respond to that question about Brown Act bodies and ad hoc committees. And we talked about this a little. Some of you may recall we talked about this a little when we talked about our Brown Act orientation in the beginning of the committee's meetings. But this goes to the definition of legislative body in the Brown Act, which is section 54952 of the Government Code. And it says, in subdivision A, it includes governing bodies of local agencies and other local bodies created by state or federal statute. Subdivision B, which is our focus for this question, says the legislative body includes a commission, committee, board, or other body of a local agency, whether permanent or temporary, decision-making or advisory, created by charter, ordinance, resolution, or formal action of the legislative body. So, already that would include this body because of the formal action of the council to create it and the legislative enabling action that established that. And then there's an exception to the definition of legislative body that many of us refer to as the ad hoc committee exception. And it says, advisory committees composed solely of the members of the legislative body, i.e. the body that created the subordinate body, that are less than a quorum of the legislative body are not legislative bodies. And then the exception goes on to say, except that standing committees of the legislative body, irrespective of their composition, that have continuing subject matter jurisdiction or a meeting schedule fixed by charter, are legislative bodies for purposes of the chapter. So it's a little confusing, I guess, but ad hoc is obviously in the title of this body, and I think the reason for that it was conceived as being not permanent in nature, and that's something that has been talked about tonight, and that may be a part of the recommendations of the body, which is fine. But just because that's in the title doesn't mean it meets the ad hoc exception in the Brown Act, which would mean that the meetings of this body didn't have to satisfy the notice and other requirements of the Brown Act, but they do because of because it doesn't fit in the ad hoc exception, and it is covered by several of these other definitions of legislative bodies that are covered by the Brown Act. So hopefully that addresses that question. If there are further questions, please feel free to relay them to me or to staff, and we can address them. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
I'm sorry, this is Eric Leland. Could you say in a simple sentence why the exception doesn't apply? Like that last bit.
Why the ad hoc exception doesn't apply?
Correct.
Sure. Let me go back to it. Because for several reasons, but one of the main ones is this body is not composed solely of members of the legislative body that created it. So So ad hoc committees that qualify for that exemption are made up solely of council members with respect to bodies created by the council. It's also, the other reason is it was created by formal action of the council. So those are two.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question? And I'm happy to provide the statute too. I think it'll be clear, a little clearer if you look at it.
Sorry, I wanted to make sure we got your key points so that it was not sort of obscured by the other information.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So Eric, thank you. Both Erics, thank you. Thank you all so much for your time and for all the time we spent in the beginning, dealing with the other issue. And, I want to address finally one more time this notion of a safe space here. This committee, we are striving, it's aspirational to make it a safe space. And by that, I mean, if there are any attacks on people within this committee or people are treated with less than respect, it won't be tolerated. We cannot control, none of us can control necessarily what happens outside of this committee. But as I've said, and the city has said, and we've said together, if in fact you see something, say something. And things are percolating through, and we appreciate it. I really want to thank you all. This is a lot of work. It is triggering. As a woman of color, I can tell you it's triggering. It is, we live, particularly people of color, we live this every single day. I was on vacation in Mendocino. We were driving up this past week, and my significant other, my boyfriend, said, uh-oh. And there was a lot, a flag. Somebody had flags on the side of their house, and it said thin blue line. Now, and he's a black man, and he's he's like, uh-oh, because we're not impugning all police, but what we're saying is the reality is we know the reality of what happened. So your lived experiences matter, your fears matter. What's really important is that you're bringing your heart and soul to this work, and you are taking risks. And I understand that. And I want to thank you, because if we don't take risks, we don't get anywhere. Some people just have more on the line than others, including their safety and their lives. So thank you. Appreciate it. We will get the assignment out. The assignment means just the framework, so that you can put forth your ideas.
Tracy, can I ask a quick question before
Yes.
we complete? I know we're past time. I'm very sorry. This whole process just taught me to be a little bit more process-minded.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the public comment was about recommending a standing committee. That would take the city a long time to vet properly for a proper committee.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us on this call had only signed up for 6 meetings.
Right.
So is it something that we could come to the next meeting ready to just vote on a recommendation that the city start vetting candidates, and that would give them 60 days to have a committee, a set of committee ready to, take the baton?
To carry on. So, Anne-Marie, if you don't mind, I'm going to defer to the city manager on that. Is that okay? Because she's the one that can best answer that.
I would just suggest that whatever recommendations the committee has at the end of this, that go to city council at that time.
Okay, so we wouldn't be able to give a specific recommendation at the next meeting to say, let's start on that committee, since we would know that we would want a following body to take on the final recommendations after the 6th meeting.
I would suggest that we package all the recommendations to council at once, so we can have that
to have the vetting start ahead of time.
I'm sorry?
It wouldn't help the process to have the city start vetting ahead of time.
Yeah, I think what we committed to was bringing all the recommendations to council at once, so we could discuss holistically what the recommendations
Okay,
were.
I thought there was the ability to bring something early, but okay.
We can discuss that. Let me think about that, Anne Marie, and see
Yeah,
how
and we
can
can
best
sit
package
offline
that.
too. I don't want to keep people on.
Yeah.
No, it's just a thought that I'm having, like trying to like keep the ball rolling momentum wise, so that we don't have a two-month break between our 6th meeting and the next committee.
The next, yeah. Thank you for bringing that up. I think the police chief has his hand raised. Is that right, Aaron?
Thank you, Tracy. Just very quickly, you can appreciate as your police chief being given the public's trust that integrity is important to me. And I just don't want to leave a couple of comments unaddressed. First, for Mr. Peters, my commitment to the council was to not bring another parking vehicle back to the council that was not electric. I would just refer you back to that recording. And then secondly, we have 2 electric vehicles that are both fossil fuel powered and electricity powered. And both of those vehicles are in use, and we use electricity primarily in the city here. So I just wanted to address that. Thank you for your time, and I'm sorry that it's so late.
Thank you. All right, I want to thank all of you. I want you all to stay safe, please. And yes.
We do have one other hand raised for Pedro Toledo, so I did want to address that. But I did want to make a quick correction on our Chief Solano's comment. There are 2 plug-in hybrids that are with the police department.
Okay.
But you have Pedro Toledo.
All right. Go ahead, Pedro.
Yeah, just a quick question in terms of the Brown Act and public comment. Is it that public comment is required prior to taking a vote, or is it not? I'm not familiar with whether we're subject to accepting public comment prior to taking a vote or not.
Shall I answer that, Tracy?
Yes, please, Eric.
Sure. So there's 2 kinds of public comment that that the Brown Act affords for those attending public meetings. One is public comment on action items, and that's supposed to precede the action. And the other is general public comment for items not agendized. And it's the distinction is a little bit hard to preserve fully in the meetings of a body like this, because the topics of discussion are so broad, and the agenda items are kind of much more general if you compare them to a lot of the transactional things that are on the city council agendas and even the planning commission agendas. But that's the difference, and that's our obligation.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Aaron, is there anyone else that has anything to say before we wrap up?
There are no hands raised.
Okay, well, I want to thank all of you again, and this is hard work. It's you all are a hardy bunch, I tell you. So I will see you on July 20th, but we will send the recap of this, the minutes, as well as the assignments, so you can put your ideas together. And we did expand that bucket that we're going to talk about to include police, civilian oversight, and the weapons, the funding issue. The reallocation of funds. So thank you. Be safe, and we will see you soon. And you know how to. Yes.
You did want to make a comment.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Peggy.
Okay, hi Peggy.
Peggy Quinn, sorry. Before everybody goes, I was just thinking we've got our goals workshop coming up on June 28th, and that could be a recommendation for council to consider in our goals and priorities. The next, the next workshop that we were taking to council was prioritizing all the things that the city has in front of it over the next 2 years. So if it's a recommendation from this committee, that could go to council as a recommendation during our goals and priorities conversation.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
That's it, Tracy.
Okay, good night, be safe, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Good night all.